Welcome everyone to Career Resource Night on day 2 of week 2 of the Angel City virtual games presented by the Hartford. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Clayton Freck. I'm the founder and CEO of Angel City Sports. And just to start off with, this is probably my favorite night of the games. I love Resource Night. We did our first one last year and it was amazing. And I even see some folks attending like Mike that were there last year and Adina that got to participate. So I'm really excited. And I'm also excited for tonight's topic, which is careers and really starting to think about, kind of career planning and getting advice from some of our speakers. And I think it doesn't really matter where you are in life. If you're young and starting to dream about what you could become when you grow up, or if you're in college or right after college and starting to worry about what the job market's going to look like, or if you're unhappy in a job and looking to make a change, or even if you're re-entering the workforce after an absence or military service or something like that. So tonight was really designed with all of you in mind. And I am kind of passionate about career planning, and I actually think it's kind of fun and cool. And when I think about my own career, I've done a lot of really unique things that have kind of kept me excited about work. And so I worked in the White House. I helped save the ozone layer working for the federal government. I've traveled the country and really even the world for business, managing hundreds and hundreds of people. And then sort of this current stage is working on a nonprofit. And so, I've had a really diverse career that has just kind of kept that fire in me. But saying all that, I have made a ton of mistakes along the way in my career. I've probably changed jobs too much. I've worked for people that didn't really appreciate or respect me. I've been unhappy. I've joined the wrong companies. I've said and done the wrong things at important moments in my career. And thinking about all of my experiences, I'm really passionate about helping others. And in fact, I've started a career development and coaching firm called Ampla, which means opportunity in Latin, to help others avoid some of those mistakes that I've made. And I really believe, and one of the reasons why we started Angel City Sports is I believe that everyone, including people with disabilities, should have the right or the opportunity to live a full optimized life. And I think that really does include, getting a job and having a career and being able to financially provide for yourself and your family. But I know it can be daunting. It can even be kind of scary to think about how do you map out that next step, or how do you even get started in a career? How do you change your career, et cetera? And so I've coached probably a few hundred people over the years in their careers. And I've really settled on 3 things that I think everyone should really consider when they're starting to map out their careers. And I'm going to share those 3 with you. So the first one is to have passion. Right? So find things that you love to do, things that you jump out of bed to do. And I have to say, I'm very passionate about Angel City, and I jump out of bed to work on Angel City every day right now. So passion's number 1. Number 2 is purpose. So this one's harder for most people to figure out, but I don't think it's impossible to figure out. But why were you placed on this planet? What are the things that your soul is meant to accomplish on the planet? And I don't think that that's always your passion. I think it can be something different that is your purpose. And then the third one, so I call this the 3 Ps. The third one is your proficiency. So what are you good at? What are your skills? What is that starting point that you can then build on and have an amazing career? So I believe if you think about those 3 Ps and you find where they all intersect, that's a really good starting point for your career path. And again, I think you could think about those 3 things at the beginning stages or the middle, or even at the end of your career. So I have the distinct honor of introducing Kirstie Ennis, who I've been tracking for a long time and just sort of following her journey. And I'm so excited to have her with us this year. She's a veteran, and I'm going to let her share her story. She's an incredible athlete who's climbing the world's tallest mountains. She's a Hollywood stunt woman. She's an entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and she's an advocate for our community. And I will tell you, her resume is like so long, you can't even imagine getting through it. But the part of the resume that speaks to me the most, that makes me so excited to hear her story and hear her journey is her foundation. So her foundation supports other nonprofits in our space. So that's pretty amazing. There aren't that many funding sources for adaptive sports and recreational organizations like Angel City. So we kind of have to go fight our way for dollars from donors and sponsors. So her foundation is dedicated to helping organizations like Angel City. So I think that's just an incredible mission. It's just so powerful. And you think about this COVID-19 era, you know, they're saying that 30 to 40% of small businesses are going to go bankrupt, which is a staggering number. A lot have already gone out of business, and there's more coming. And most nonprofits are small businesses. So like whatever we can do, whatever her foundation can do to keep some of these nonprofits going that are doing the hard work on the ground with veterans, with civilians, with kids and adults, we got to do it. So without further ado, Kirstie, will you take it from here, and just thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. My pleasure. Thanks for doing what you do for our community. So a little bit about me. I'll start with, hands down, my favorite story of all time. But my mom and my dad got married at 18 years old. And shortly after, my dad joined the Marine Corps. So at 27 years old, while my family was living on Marine Corps Base 29 Palms, my mom came home and told my dad, you know, I think these female Marines are pretty badass. And my dad turned to my mom and said, I will never be married to a female Marine. To which my mom turned around, went out the door, went to the recruiter's office, got an age waiver, and joined the Marine Corps, leaving me at home with my dad while she went to boot camp. So morals of the story, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and my dad is a pain in the butt. Immediately after earning my 2 degree from Pensacola State College, just 4 months after my 17th birthday, I went to the recruiter's office and told them that I wanted to join as well. But of course, being so young, I needed my parents' consent. Because I was also a pain, my mom immediately signed the paperwork. But in order for me to get my dad to sign, I actually had to lie through my teeth saying that I would do a desk job like supply or admin. Long story short, my dad dropped me after boot camp, and my recruiter casually said to my dad, this is great. I've never put a female in for this type of job. My cover was blown, my father was angry, but I was well on my way. I ended up spending 6 years in the United States Marine Corps as a helicopter door gunner and airframes mechanic. So it's safe to say it was not a desk job. I fought tooth and nail to be able to wear those shiny gold wings on my chest. And I would be lying if I said any of it were easy. Luckily, I have thick skin and a chip on my shoulder, and I'm as stubborn as they come. I wanted to do anything, you know, to be the best aerial door gunner that I could be. I wanted the people around me to know that I would protect them just as they were protecting me. I wanted the men around me to trust that I could do the same job that they were doing and that I would do it better. I had 3 months between my first and second deployments, and in January of 2012, I was right back in Afghanistan. And on June 23rd, 2012, I went out on this mission that should have been fairly routine. It should have been like any other day, any other mission really. And everything was going as planned. And then suddenly I was staring through my night vision goggles at the rapidly approaching ground, and my world went into slow motion. I found myself staring at this blue cabin overhead light, struggling to breathe with blood rapidly filling my mouth. I rolled my tongue around my mouth and choked on grit from my shattered jaw and missing teeth. and I screamed, but it just wasn't out of pain. It was just out of shock. And my tail gunner, who had been my military hero and role model, wasn't responding initially. So to heck with me, I just wanted to know that he was okay. And they threw me into the medevac helicopter, and I drained the blood from the now or then fist-sized hole in my face. And the left door gunner of the new aircraft bent down next to me and said, "Don't close your friggin' eyes, because you're not going to open them again." And I told myself that I wasn't going to die without seeing my little sister. And then everything went black. And in my mind, through all of that, I wasn't that hurt. I had just been combat meritoriously promoted to sergeant. There was no way that they could send me home. But the moment that I saw my sergeant major and my gunnery sergeant standing there staring at me and crying, I knew that entire deployment was over. Due to that helicopter crash, I sustained a variety of injuries, everything from a traumatic brain injury, spinal cord damage to my arms, my ears, my eyes, and then eventually I lost my left leg above the knee. I've had 45 surgeries. The last one was actually just on July 8th. I've been through every kind of therapy you can think of. To this day, I still go to mental health and speech therapy. So I really have. I've been through the ringer at this point. But without a doubt, the biggest challenges were my invisible injuries. So much so that on my very first Alive Day, or the 1-year anniversary of all of this happening, that I actually wanted to throw in the towel. I wanted to give up. And I will never forget the moment that my dad came to me with tears in his eyes as he said, "You've got to be kidding me. The enemy couldn't kill you, and now you're going to do it for them." And that was the moment that I decided I was going to get my life back. The moment that I decided to basically embrace my pain in my past and to stop inflicting my personal suffering on others was the moment that I realized that we have the power to write the rest of our stories. That one chapter doesn't have to determine how the story is going to end. So hanging on to my dad's words, I chose to continue the hardest fight of my life, my recovery. And eventually I realized that I could still use my life, even without the military, as a way to help people. So by focusing on what I could do for others, my problems and my pain dissipated. At that point in time, when I got out of the military, it would have been May of 2014, I had lost years of my life to the hospital and to recovery. I lost that military career. I lost the majority of my memory, and the most obvious, I lost my leg. But at this point, I just choose to focus on what I've gained. And the biggest blessing by far has been my new perspective on life and these new experiences and opportunities that have come my way because of something terrible happening. Through all of it, what really helped me in my transition to really finding that new purpose and finding the life that I always dreamed of was really when I turned to the outdoors. In late 2013, an organization approached me and asked if I had any desire to learn a winter sport. And of course, being from Florida, I didn't know anything about winter or snow, but I was honestly willing to learn anything if it got me out of the hospital. But rather than learning to curl or sit ski, my curiosity led me straight to snowboarding, and the rest was history. So for the remainder of my time when I was in the hospital, I snuck away to snowboard. I started competing in border cross and bank slalom. I had every intention on competing in the 2018 Winter Games, and then life threw me another curveball, and its name was MRSA. So I ended up, I can't believe it, setback after setback. I ended up losing another 14 inches of my leg. And I'll never forget when the doctors came in and they said, we might have to take your hip. And again, I thought this whole new dream was turned into a nightmare. But obviously I made it through, and again, I really had to dig deep and soul search and starve my ego a little bit to figure out what I wanted to do. And eventually, when I was healthy enough, snowboarding just wasn't the same. Medals didn't mean as much. But I'm grateful because it eventually led me to all things in the outdoors: rock climbing, ice climbing, and now my longest lasting and deepest love, mountaineering. So I guess through all of this is what I'm trying to show you is that the most valuable lesson is it's the 6 inches between our ears and what's behind our rib cage that dictate what we're capable of. Whether it's adapting to change or facing a fear or trying something new, if you keep your head and your heart in the right place, you will always overcome. I never thought that anything that I've been through would really lead me to where I am today and doing the things that I'm doing. Much like probably the majority of you never dreamed that you'd be doing what you're doing now as well. But I've got to give it to every single one of you, because it takes courage and guts to show up, to try something new, to train, or just to compete. You know, it takes courage to put it all out there, and the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we all know that there's going to be times that we're going to stumble and fall and fail and the whole nine. But I guess when I started all of this, everything that I've been doing, it's really because I didn't have the role model that I needed or wanted when I was in the hospital. So now moving forward, I just constantly remind myself of the people watching, you know, the young ones who need someone to be a pillar of hope, the men and the women looking for inspiration to keep going. And if there's any parents out there, young kids, plug your ears. But and really, it's just the non-believers waiting for my middle finger as I prove them wrong. When I learned to live with my trauma and what came with it, instead of fighting all of it, everything became easier. You know, you can't change something that's already happened. You can't change the past, but you really can dictate what your future is going to look like. You can use these life experiences as an anchor, or you can use them as a propeller. And, you know, when I'm asked, you know, how did I come so far? Or how did I overcome these adversities? It's really just, you know, it's the right actions follow the right perspectives. You know, when I feel angry or when I feel upset, I pause just to count a blessing. I force myself to remember the good that's left in the world, and I force myself to be real and raw and vulnerable, even when I have no desire to be. You know, a brief moment of discomfort can really lead to a lifetime of relief. And for anybody, again, I don't know everybody's stories and I don't know what everybody's facing, but I just want to remind you that none of this happened overnight for me. It honestly took years. So my initial injury was in 2012, and the best years of my life didn't even start until 2017. You know, that's when I fell in love with big mountain sports and thin air. That's what I completed a third master's, all against my doctor's odds and orders. I started a doctorate. I got back up on my snowboard and competed again. I founded my own nonprofit, the Kirstie Ennis Foundation. Real original, I know. And in my opinion, as they were saying earlier, most importantly, I decided that I was going to attempt to be the first female above knee amputee to ever climb the 7 summits, so the highest peak on each of the 7 continents. And even though I'm rattling off all this stuff at rapid fire, I hope that through all of those different aspects, I really hope that there's someone out there watching me thinking that they can do this better than me. And then I hope that you guys actually try. I hope that there's something throughout all of what I just said that you guys can use as stepping stones. Because at this point, now I can't stop. Yeah, I won't stop. I want to show the world that anything is possible, given you're willing to work for it. You know, I am missing my leg, but I have also mastered the art form of convincing myself to put one foot in front of the other, the art form of convincing myself to suffer well, and really just the art form of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think I realized that by putting others first, like that's what really got me through the most challenging years of my life. By putting my heart and my soul into the work that I do now, whether it's just paying it forward or giving back, I realize that I'm rewarded in ways far greater than the numbers on a paycheck. So as you guys talk about careers this evening, and you guys again continue to face adversities and challenges and overcome and win and rise, I hope that you can use my story as a way to push yourself harder. You know, it's a reminder to take that extra step further, rest a moment less, to endure a fraction more. And I hope that you guys have learned to suffer well as well. I encourage you to make peace with whatever your pain may be, to reflect on what you have always and what you can give. And I hope that you remember your why, no matter what. I hope that everyone learns to just embrace what this ever-changing life holds, whether it's in sports or your career. And I hope that you enjoy it. So thank you guys.
Kirsty, thank you. That was mind-blowing. You're such a pro. That was incredible. Thank you. I don't know if you're watching the chat, but you're blowing up on the chat too. So
I can see
great
it.
work.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. That was incredible.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's just amazing. Thank you for joining us tonight, sharing your powerful story. Everyone can learn more about Kirstie, her future climbs, and the great work her foundation, being done by her foundation at Kirstie Ennis Foundation.com. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Stacy. I'm with Angel City. Thank you for being here at Career Resource Night at Angel City Virtual Games presented by the Hartford. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsors, the Hartford, Ampla Partners, Adaptive Apps, and the Capital Group for their generous contribution to the Angel City Virtual Games. We are truly grateful for all of their support. This evening, we have 2 breakout sessions, insights from corporate leaders and insights from entrepreneurs. All of you will have the opportunity to hear from both panels. Insights from corporate leaders. Hosting this panel tonight, we have Sean Kelly, who is the Director of Sales, Western Region for Microsoft. And joining him will not be Anne-Marie Lebrecq. Unfortunately, Anne-Marie from the Hartford will not be able to join us tonight. She's on the East Coast, and the weather has affected the East Coast tremendously from the storms. And so Anne-Marie has lost power at her home, and literally just before this meeting has said she's not going to be able to join us. So we hope her family is well and safe tonight. And but we do have Rosie Alvarez, Director of Talent Acquisition for Hanger Clinic. And we do have Joe Gintu, Senior Manager, Risk and Financial Advisory for Deloitte. And we will move on to the next panel will be Insights from Entrepreneurs. This panel will be hosted by none other than Clayton Freck, CEO and founder of Angel City Sports and Ampla Partners. And joining Clayton will be CEO and founder of See Here and Adaptive Apps, Adina Harmon, and founder of Sunga Life Swimwear, Jeff Gum, and artist, singer, and songwriter, Kaisa. Very excited to have you guys enjoy these panels. So what I'm going to do right now is the room will divide randomly, so you will end up in either one of those sessions. And when at around 6:15, just before 6:15, we'll move the panelists, so you'll get an opportunity to hear the other session that you were not in the first session. Hopefully this will all make sense to you. When you get into your sessions, Jody and Lucy are the Angel City volunteers that are helping in each of these rooms. So it should all work out well for you. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and push breakout rooms.
I'm going to turn it over to Rosie first. If you can just give us kind of a quick background on yourself and your career. I think it'll set the stage for people to, kind of get to know you a little bit, and then hopefully ask some questions down the road based on what you say, and then we'll move on to Joe to do the same.
All right, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to participate. This is just a pleasure for me to have this opportunity. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Rosie Alvarez. I'm the Director of Talent Acquisition at Hanger. A company I'm very proud of, and consider it to be a tremendous pleasure and privilege to be with such a dedicated team. I have about 20 years of talent acquisition experience, but that is not the path I started on. I would say I probably have one of the more non-traditional HR pathways that you'll find. I've actually been an entrepreneur, had a business for almost 8 years. Which was really formed out of necessity. And so I am a big believer that volatility breeds opportunity. And you just have to be open and receptive to doing and looking for new pathways that perhaps you weren't even expecting or aware of. But I am a big believer that careers are an evolution. And I hope we can talk more about that you don't necessarily have to have it all figured out from the get-go. That as you gain more life experience, you'll start to see things play out and in the way that they're meant to. So again, I really appreciate being here. excited to hear your questions, and I'm happy to make myself available, not only through this event, but certainly you're welcome to reach out to me directly at work, and I'll share that email address later on.
Great. Same question to you, Joe. Just a little bit back on your background. I know you've been at Deloitte for quite a while, but love to hear about you and your career.
Sure. Thanks for having me, everybody. And I know Clayton and Kirsty aren't on this panel right now, but thank you to the two of them for kicking it off and such an inspirational story. So my name is Joe Gintu. I've been at Deloitte for about 15 years. I'm actually in a wheelchair myself. I'm paraplegic. I started with Deloitte in 2005, just after college, University of Notre Dame. And in 2007 is when I suffered my spinal cord injury while surfing. So at Deloitte, I do a lot of consulting type work. And after the injury, they asked me how I wanted to modify my work with regards to working remotely or less travel, et cetera. And I essentially said, I want to do everything exactly the same. So a week after, they shipped me off to Costa Rica for a project. I did a 2.5, almost 3-year stint in Melbourne, Australia, after being injured, so in the wheelchair. And now we're working remotely like most other people, but I still consult mostly tech and media companies, just from this room, from this background that you see. So I'm excited to talk to you about any questions you have around what it's like to be working while disabled and how to navigate potential barriers and challenges you might encounter. And then one last quick story I'll share is I've been involved with the game since the beginning, and I was saddened because when I was talking to another adapted athlete, we were just talking about what our plans were, and he was about to go into college, and he said, I'm not really going to do much. I'm in a wheelchair, I can't do much. And by that time, I was several years into my career, and kind of had a pep talk with him of, do not let your disability be a barrier. And it is tough on the road that we have for those who might have a disability, but everything is still possible, similar to what Kirsty's message was. So thanks for having me, and excited to be here.
Thanks for that, Joe. Yeah, I read that article on Deloitte as well, and I think it's really interesting. I'd love for you to expand a little bit more on what it's like being disabled in other countries. I think most of the people on this call probably are just familiar with what it's like being disabled with the United States and with the ADA and things like that. But I'm curious what your experience was in Costa Rica and also in Australia. Some of the challenges that you were faced with.
Yep. So I'll say from a company standpoint, each time I would be proposed to go to one of the locations, they would ask questions, see how they could support me, et cetera. So they were very willing to assist to see what I might need. For those who might be disabled and have traveled, you have to figure out logistics with an aisle chair, flying, et cetera. But Costa Rica and Australia are, I'll say, tier 1. I've also been to India and Thailand, which are a lot less accessible for work. And I think it's just been, an adaptable, agile mindset of how am I going to get through and do what I need to do at each of the locations. And I found from a professional standpoint, all the clients, all my colleagues, all my coworkers have all been very, very helpful and accepting in each of those locations. And it's been a very, very open and inclusive environment. Sure, I've run into some adversity, but for the most part, it's been everyone is actually more than willing to help when traveling and internationally and doing some of those more difficult things that might seem normal or easy for somebody who's ambulatory.
Great, thanks for that. Next question for Rosie. I'm curious, how did you get your first corporate job? And then from there, what's been some of the challenges in getting to where you're at now as far as like climbing that corporate ladder? Was there a mentor involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my first job, I actually leveraged from an internship out of college. In fact, it was an internship. You're not supposed to be able to compete for this internship until you're a senior. And I was very persistent, kept pursuing the department chair of my university that I just had to apply. And please, because this particular assignment only came up every other year. And so if I didn't have the opportunity to at least interview, I was never going to have this chance. And so the position was with the Attorney General's office in Indiana. And I just begged and begged and begged. And I think just out of sheer persistence and a lot of nagging, he said, okay, fine, you can compete. I don't think really thinking I would get it. And so I was selected. I was, the intern, and leveraged that over the summer into a full-time position, which was great, except I was still living up in up at Ball State, and was now having to commute both ways, and was, I was part of a sorority, and I had leadership positions and responsibilities. So I would literally, I'd work my grown-up job during the day, and I'd go back up to school in the evening, attend my night classes, hold down whatever responsibilities I had, spend the night in my room, and then I'd be up, 4:30 or 5 in the morning to make the trek back to Indianapolis. I think that that's an important story, because sometimes you have to seize on opportunities even though the timing may not be right. And so I did. What I discovered from that experience is that as much as law and order seems very sexy, I discovered after 4 years that I didn't want to be shot at, and I didn't want to shoot anybody, and frankly, I barely drive on a good day. So my degree in criminal justice and criminology was probably not going to take me down a path that really aligned with what I was learning about myself. I think that's the key, right? Is that you really have to open yourself to experiences, but you can't be afraid to question where you are on your path, to say, am I really happy? Just because I can do something doesn't mean I should do something. And there's a very big distinction with that. And so as you get life experience, you hopefully try to adapt yourself so that you're doing more of what you like and less of what you don't. This was important for me because, after I left, that role, and I started to try to figure out, well, what am I qualified to do and what do I enjoy to do? I actually met my husband, who was, he's now retired, but an active duty military officer. And so I became the traveling spouse. And so the ability to reinvent myself every so often became very important. The agility and to open myself up for opportunities where they were, to not be afraid of taking on new challenges or things I hadn't done before, really have helped to perpetuate myself and through my career. So like I said, I don't have the most traditional background. I might say, one person's interrogation is another person's interview. It's just how you handle it. And that's kind of how it's been. There's, came a point in 2004 when my husband was looking at a deployment, and I was working for a search firm, where it became very obvious that, I was being undervalued. I was earning about 15% of anything that I brought into the firm. I did not have paid time off, and I had minimal benefits. And as my husband was looking at this deployment, was essentially told, no, I couldn't have paid time off. And they were really giving me a hard time, and I was actually a pretty heavy hitter for the firm. So I went home, talked to my husband, and I was kind of moping. And what I really was looking for was a hug. And what I got was, well, what are you going to do about it? And I was just kind of like, I wanted a hug. But that really sat with me. He says, are you going to complain about it, or are you going to do something about it? And so literally the end of the week, as he was in processing in El Paso, he called me and said, how are you doing? I said, I'm great. He's like, wow, you sound so much better. I said, I am. He says, what'd you do today? I said, I quit. He said, wait, you what? I said, I quit. And what I discovered is that I had a realization that I have value. And for the privilege of using someone else's phone and a lead list, I was being undervalued. I was getting 15%. And as I looked around, I realized I had a phone, I had a lead list, and more importantly, I had drive. And from that, I grew a business over the period of 8 years and 7 employees. That was, lots of mistakes along the way, but lots of wins there too. And I learned that at my heart, I am a builder. I love change. I am a change management junkie, and the ability to be flexible and fluid, to be a crusader for common sense, actually works really well in a business setting. And I've now been able to translate that after selling my business and moving into the corporate sector by essentially using the same principles that made sense in my business to transfer that into a corporate setting. And it really helps to align, companies with great people. And it's a passion point. It's a pleasure. I love the change of it every day. And I love the ability of being able to help people. It's a lot of fun.
That's great. I mean, there's a lot of things that come to mind in that answer. I mean, I was going to ask you about, what was it like taking an internship into leading into an actual first job, but it sounded like you kind of kept your head down and did all the right things. I think a lot of people, given that opportunity, some take advantage of it, some don't. Sounds like you did, but also embracing change and being in touch with kind of like what we're going through. I myself have probably reinvented myself, I think 6 or 7 times in my career, and have been in like 5 different industries, all in a sales capacity. But, I think it's also important to embrace change, because things are always changing in the corporate world or even in small business world. So, being comfortable with that uncomfortability, I think, is something that came to me there in your answer. So thank you for that. Joe, specific for you, I'm curious, is there any specific insight or advice that you would give to a specific job applicant or candidate who does have a disability, as far as maybe, obviously, hopefully being open with that, but like, again, I'm curious if you have interviewed anyone, or, what advice you can give to the people on the phone. I think people sometimes might be a little fearful to maybe, in their resume reveal that. What advice would you give to the community out there on an applicant or someone looking for a job who has a disability?
Sure, I'll answer that with 2 things. One is, so when I got injured in 2007, one of our leaders had polio, so he was walking with crutches, and I looked at him and asked him, we just had some heart-to-heart conversations around, when I go to work now, I'm going to look different and appear different, and my capabilities are going to be different. Just mentally, how do I deal with that? And one thing he said, one insight he said to me was, realize that when you go to a room of people, obviously we're virtual right now, but in the normal way, and you go in with your wheelchair or him with polio, that in some ways you have an upper hand already mentally or psychologically, because a lot of people don't necessarily expect or really anticipate to see that. And the fact that you're there, it puts people a little, not at ease per se, but just be cognizant that that presence means something and own it. Not necessarily, I'm not saying to parlay that into entitlement, but it's just to go into those conversations knowing that if I put myself in their shoes, let's say they have 10 candidates, I'm probably the only one that's in a wheelchair or disabled, depending on the role, right? So it's just being mindful of that perception when you're going into an interview of this may come off. Again, virtually might be a little different, but even if you're interviewing virtually, we are who we are, and what I always push people to do is bringing their full and authentic selves to work. So pulling on stories that have made you who you are, which for me is a lot of my disability and then what I've gone through, some of those stories will just come out. And so it's not saying hire me because I'm in a wheelchair, but I have developed a certain level of resiliency because of this experience. And then the second point I'll mention is I did reach out to one of the disability recruiters to ask a similar question of, should people kind of call it out and say, I'm in a wheelchair, or I have, a mental disability, or what should they mention that very proactively? And the response that, and again, I'm not a recruiter per se, but the response she said is if you're applying for a job, there's usually a question about whether you require accommodations. And she said, by all means, if you do require accommodations, then indicate that. By law, they're not able to discriminate negatively based on that. But by all means, if you do need accommodations, definitely ask and request it, and because you don't want to be behind another candidate because of something you were fearful to ask. So yeah, just be open, be authentic, be yourself. Don't try to hide who you are, what you've done, but just go in confident and know that you've been through something that most others haven't, and that's part of who you are.
Thank you, Joe. Rosie, similar question, just from a talent acquisition perspective. And obviously you work for a company, I'm guessing, that does have a larger population than most companies with disabled employees. Do you prefer that they disclose that and share their story during the application process?
I absolutely do. In the same way that I would expect anybody approaching a job search or coming to interview or speak with us, should present themselves, with authenticity. Your stories and your path have value. Your perspective has value. I mean, that's at the heart of cultures that really support diversity and inclusion. It's understanding that there's strength when you gain these different perspectives. Things like resiliency absolutely matters. Flexibility absolutely matters. You still have a duty and responsibility to make sure that you're prepared as a candidate, that you are qualified as a candidate, and that you have, gained experience that's going to help you be successful in those roles. But my goodness, I would really hope that you wouldn't hesitate in sharing, because I think that you can't, be your best self if you're not your whole self. And there's no better time than to share that in the very beginning. And if a company really has concerns about that, well, you're not in the right place anyway, and they're not befitting of all that you have to offer.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know it's tough because, I would say the disabled population in a lot of companies isn't that high. It's something that we do talk about at Microsoft, about trying to include within the interview process someone who is similar looking, whether it's of race or, disability, to that person also interviewing. And it's not just a white privileged male like myself doing all the interviews. So it's something I think we can all get better at, as well as trying to be more inclusive in the interview process as well.
I think that's a very good point. I think the other thing is that, there is a place for you to disclose, and companies that are really focused on, ensuring that we are taking to heart, A, making sure that we have a competitive hiring process in place, and B, that we are doing everything we can to promote roles, promote opportunities across wide sectors of talent pools. The only way we know if we're doing our job well, and the only way we know how to correct, or maybe, market in different ways, or reach out in new avenues, is if you disclose. If you don't disclose, when we go and look at, well, let's review our entire talent pool that actually applied for these positions, we have no idea whether or not we're reaching everyone. And so, I understand it's a personal thing. I understand that with the challenges. Sorry, dogs. As much as I understand that the maybe some sensitivities around that, there's a greater purpose even beyond you around giving information, giving companies that information, because it really does cause us to make investments and really do a better job at marketing, so that you're fully aware when these opportunities come up and you have the fair chance to compete.
Great. How are we doing on time, Jody? I know there's a lot of questions coming in. I was going to ask Joe another question, then maybe open it up to the room, and then I can come back if we have more time.
Well, I was just going to say, we're supposed to end about 6:15. I was going to open it up to questions in a few minutes, but you can, if you want to, you can go to the questions in the chat right now. Camille had a really good question for Joe and Rosie. Do you think the dynamics of being an employee with a disability will improve now that companies realize individuals can be productive working from home?
Sure, I can start with that. I think if you look at the job market overall, I don't know if having a disability will propel you or detract you. I know it's been unfortunate that many people have lost their jobs, and companies are now realizing that if they're based in San Francisco, they don't need somebody to be in San Francisco, so they can search nationwide or potentially worldwide. So the pool will not necessarily change. That being said, again, I work a lot with tech and media companies. I have seen over the past several years a progression of focus on the various types of inclusion, and even with a lot of the tech companies, if you also Google it, I think Google is one of the companies that has come out with a public report on various types of inclusion parameters, and I believe ability or disability is one of them. So I know that inclusion is high on many companies' radar, and I think it could only help for those people that might have been hesitant because of where they are geographically. One of the questions was, where do I live? I live in Santa Barbara, and most of my clients are in the Bay Area or New York or LA, but I do most of my work from here, and previously I was flying around. So I think there can be some benefits to the new working environment, if that might have been a detractor. But I don't necessarily want to overinflate that now tons of disabled people are going to be getting hired, with what's happening with the remote working environment. But like I said, that being said, if it was a detractor to you in the past, it definitely can open your eyes to opportunities even across the country or across the world if you were historically siloed to your geography.
I was going to add to that and just say, I think where it really helps is perhaps if you have individuals, that may have some unconscious bias around this issue. I mean, I think that, I'm just seeing just from the interviews that we're doing that it's causing, managers to be much more open to possibility. I think instead of looking at ways to rule out, they're looking at ways to and opening themselves up into ruling in. And I think part of just getting into this virtual format and the ability of working home and, where an individual has the ability to contribute, not in just such a different capacity, I think it's just causing people to say, well, why not? And I think that's the thing we're constantly trying to push up against is but why or why not? And I think that's where we may see some movement and greater access and greater openness and challenging some perceptions.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the similar things that hold true for anyone interviewing, just, having a mentor, having, practicing an interview before you go in. I think to my brother who was disabled and he struggled a lot with getting jobs, and more so not because of his disability, but because of his fear going in, and also just not having the practice of interviewing, and being able to showcase his true worth in the interview process. He just didn't give himself enough credit, I think, a lot of times. But I would definitely recommend everyone online, find yourself a mentor, someone who could help you with the interview process, someone who could give you tips, do sample interviews with you as well. Being prepared is obviously super important for the questions that you're going to get, because you'll be judged just like anyone else, based on your preparation and how you present yourself on the interview.
I don't see any other questions in chat unless somebody wants to verbally say something. If not, Sean, you can continue with the questions that you wanted to ask.
Sure. I wanted to ask Joe. Joe, I know you've been with Deloitte for a long time, and I'm sure you've been either recruited or you've thought about possibly leaving. And this isn't to specifically talk about your career, but maybe to give perspective to the folks listening in. What would be a type of company that would be attractive to you? It seems like Deloitte has been very supportive of your disability and your career growth. But if you were to consider moving to another company, what are some factors that would definitely need to be in play for you to consider that move?
I think number one is sort of their mission or core, because if integrity and just the willingness to do good is not core to who that company is, and similar to what Rosie was saying, if you're going through the application process and they do indirectly, knock you down or make it an awkward experience because of your disability, that's a company you don't want to be at. So I think seeing value in the authenticity that you bring is number one. And number two is, I'll say for me personally, is just a company that would be willing to, for what they do, makes an impact to the community and to the world in various ways. It could be what that company does makes an impact, or that they heavily invest or spend time giving back to the community. So, at Deloitte, they've been very flexible with regards to, I'll say my accommodations with, balancing out remote versus not. I'm a dad now of 2 kids, so there's other accommodations that come with that. And also, one thing to not overlook is, the insurance benefits I get at a big corporation are probably generally a little bit better than what you might get at a smaller company. And I I haven't done all the research with that, but I do know that if it's another large corporation, that in general they'll have a pretty good benefit package that'll cover a lot of the medical necessities that I do have. That has been a good asset, being at the firm at Deloitte, having access to some of those big things. One other thing that I'll interject that doesn't relate to that question, but you were talking about how to disclose, et cetera. I think one other thing I'll interject is those listening on this call, you now have this network. So I know when as Sean was saying, be prepared, knowing how to answer interview questions, et cetera. And when you go through the application process, disclose. Don't be too hesitant to go the side door as well, of reach out to Clayton of, hey, Clayton, this is what I'm interested in. Do you have anybody who's involved with Angel City that is tied to this organization or this type of industry? Because his network is fairly vast. And, I know Sean and we all kind of offered, we're happy to help outside as well. But, don't be hesitant. You have a disabled community that'll vouch for you. And I think in general, anybody that's involved in Angel City will have that type of mentality. And so don't feel too hesitant to reach out and seek additional guidance, support, references, referrals, et cetera.
Yeah, great point, Joe. I mean, I'm sure you get hit up. I get hit up quite a bit just with, recent college grads or other people looking at my LinkedIn and seeing who I'm connected to and wanting career advice and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, we are a community here, so we're here to support each other. Jody, I think a few more questions came in.
Yeah, I see there's one from Power is Out, Mike Benning. Are there any positions that could actually favor someone with mobility challenges? Any panelist can take that one.
I can
Yeah.
start with that one.
Go ahead, Rosie.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, with Hanger, we actually have, obviously because of the business we're in, we're the leading provider in orthotics and prosthetic care across the country. We have great size and scope, and so we're operating in 47 states currently, have about 800 clinics. Within our organization, we have these roles that exist that really help. One is titled Community Care Coordinator, where they're actually, we are looking for people who have, had these experiences and really can relate with our patients and helping them to navigate, the different resources available to them, to have, a good place to, an advocate in care. We have a number of those roles, and they're very important to us. When we know that we have one open, we're very specific, and we'll in fact even call it out as one of those preferred qualifications. Is just this ability to connect and resonate with others within the community. So I think again, you can look at networking. Certainly there's resources around you, through this group and through others. I would also encourage you to, get involved on LinkedIn, have a presence on LinkedIn, connect with others. And if you see, if you're looking at a position and you're excited about the opportunity, you're excited about the company, go through and look and see if any of your connections there are connected as well. I'm a big believer that you put the energy out that you want to receive. And if you are clear about your intent and what you're trying to do, I know that there are people out there that want to try to help you. And so this is, a time when we talk about being a little bit comfortable with the uncomfortable. It may seem uncomfortable to do that, but I think you put your faith in the goodness of people, you'll find out that you have plenty of people who want to try to help you on achieve the, where you're trying to go. And if that means an introduction into a company, that actually can be super helpful.
Yeah, there's tons of resources out there. I mean, I know LinkedIn Learning has a lot of stuff about how to get a job. I mean, whether how to write a resume, how to do an interview, there's, limitless resources, but I think having, the wherewithal to ask for help is a good start too. So don't be afraid to.
And one last thing to add, I think the question also was, if you have a disability, other jobs that'd actually be an advantage. One thing I can think about is, again, I've served various clients, and almost all, if not all of them, have specific inclusion teams, including like the chief inclusion officer, et cetera. And I think having experience with a particular type of disability would definitely be an asset to be a part of that team, because they would have somebody with firsthand interactivity with that. So if that's something you're interested in, again, like I said, most of the companies that I work with, most big companies or small, that's definitely something hot on or top of the radar. So that might actually be a role or position or group that might be an advantage having a disability in.
Great point. We actually have a whole division at Microsoft about accessibility, and it's led by someone who does have a disability. And then a lot of her team as well, because they're creating products. They want to have, you know, that community involved, helping to create those products and be a member of those teams as well. So great point, Joe. Here in Mexicali, Mexico, we have some places where outside, specifically government places, you can find signs that say people with disabilities working here or on a service. What do you think about that? Is it necessary, not necessary to mention it?
That's an interesting one. It's obviously it's not something that you see widespread, although I can think of some environments where you may see a little bit of a designation around that. But my off the cuff Rosie response on that is sometimes it's hard to find 3 people to agree on what to put on a pizza. So to get our government to agree on how to best, to do something like that, or if it's necessary or warranted, I just don't know that we're going to get that kind of. It's just not an approach I think that's widely adapted or possible. I mean, I guess anything's possible, but you kind of stumped me on that one. That's certainly a different approach.
I know that there are there's a magazine called Disabled in Careers, and there's also various, I'll say, disability awards. I know Deloitte's come out where we're on the top, I don't know if it's 10, 50, 100. Every year we're part of the disability awards. So if you are looking for companies that actively advertise that they cater to people with disabilities, I would say take a look at some of those awards listings to see what those companies might be. Whether an organization decides to actively advertise that they cater to people with disabilities or not, I think it's great to show that, but yeah, I don't know if there's a specific mandate that can indicate that.
Well, I
have a quick. I was going to interject. I have a quick thought about that. Companies, I think it should be left up to the individual companies whether they want to do that. And it's not in any way offensive. It's more very positive and supportive. I mean, I think of it like that. If you say we hire vets, I mean, it's kind of like, it could be almost like that. We support veterans. We hire, whatever. I mean, that's all.
I hear you, Jess. I think a lot of companies now too are incorporating in their advertising messages to be more inclusive, and you see, not only people with disabilities but more people of color as well in the marketing messages. So that's something maybe to look out for when you're investigating a company and doing your research. How inclusive are they in how their public facing ads are, of what they have on their site, even how accessible it is.
So to get started, so we have 3 panelists today. We have Adina, Jeff, and Kaisa. Am I saying your name right? Yes? Okay, cool. So I shared a little bit of my journey in the opening remarks. And I'd love you guys just to start with, give us sort of the Cliff Notes version of your career journey, and kind of what led up to where you are today. And I'm going to start with Adina.
Oh, thank you, Clayton. Thank you for this opportunity to kind of share my story and hopefully maybe inspire someone to become an entrepreneur if they're dreaming that dream. So basically, when I graduated from high school, I decided to study dance and psychology, and I ended up making my way through the maze of college and getting married, and I just didn't really fit the bill of working for someone else, because I really have a hard time with rules. People always tell me no, I can't do something, and I'm dead set to prove them wrong. And so through my life, I've been a caterer. I've worked with clients in counseling, teenagers especially. And so I think I've done a little bit of everything. I'm one of those people who I have ideas and I don't know what to do with them all the time. But if they're solving a problem, I usually try to share them with someone and get up to the right person. But this last little venture that I decided to embark on, it was the purpose of why I'm here. You know, I was like going to go through the 3 Ps. My passion is working with people and helping making their lives better, no matter what their issue is in life, whether it's just listening to someone or if someone's having a hard time on the computer or if it's teaching someone to read. It doesn't matter. I want to be that person that can be an ear, a listener, whatever. And then I came up with an idea. I just wanted to have audio and image put together, and everybody says, oh, you can't do it, it's got to be a video file. And I was like, no, let me show you. And they say, you'll never get a patent on it. Well, I have 2 patents on it now. Our company does. And I have to say, all this I don't do alone. It's a team. I have some wonderful people working at Sea here, and we're all pushing, push. And I attended the games last year, and this is when I met Clayton and Angel City Sports, and I immediately noticed that there's something I could do to help them possibly and move things further along. And so we created the app that's being used. We connected Angel City with Zoom, got that all set up with them. And I feel like sometimes my purpose is to help people and connect the dots and solve issues, whatever it is. And then I think when I'm proficient at it, I'm pretty good at putting people together and, you know, moving things forward. I don't take no. I mean, I'm going to get lots of no's. I already have in my life, but I also know that with every no, I'm one step closer to a yes. And somebody told me a long time ago, Adina, just be you. Don't try to be anyone else, because no one does you better than you. And so I can't do anyone else better than they do themselves, so might as well just be me and figure it all out. So that's what I do, and I love working with Angel City Sports. I love Clayton, I love Ezra, I love everybody over at Angel City, and it's been a great year. So
it has been.
Yeah, that's it for me.
All right, beautiful. We'll dig in a little bit into more around your journey. Kaisa, why don't you share your journey? And both Kaisa and Jeff are veterans, although from different countries. But Kaisa, I'd love to hear your journey. You're incredibly accomplished for a young lady. I looked at your resume. I'm like, I had not accomplished that much by the time I was your age. So give us that history. I mean, you were doing really cool things as a teenager.
Yeah, I had a lot of energy growing up, and I always wanted to try everything, but I also had a lot of drive. And so I started ballet really young, and I really put my heart into that and excelled. And I'm from Canada. And so when I was a teenager and getting to a point where I needed to decide if I wanted to have a career in ballet or not, I actually injured my knees, and I was told that if I kept going that I would actually probably damage my knees permanently down the road, and then I'd have to deal with that for the rest of my life. So I chose not to do ballet as a career. So suddenly I didn't have this focus, and I had begun sailing when I was about 13, and that was something I was very passionate about. So I just put all my heart into sailing and started. Within 2 years of sailing, I had excelled I was racing, and I had become an instructor. I was teaching kids how to sail, and then I actually ended up joining the Navy a few years later, very, very young. I joined when I wasn't even 17. Oh, sorry, my dog's in here. I might have to kick him out. He just came back from a walk. I joined when I was 16, just turning 17, and I ended up winning top shot on my first time ever shooting. So, yeah, I was still in high school, so I would go to high school and then I'd leave and go to the work with the Navy in the evenings.
Are you kidding me?
No.
I didn't even know you could do that. That's really cool.
Yeah, in Canada you can. I mean, they have, yeah, because you can work in the evenings in Canada. So that's what I did, and trained as a naval communicator. I excelled at coding as well. So I was top of my class at Morse code and things like that. But I realized that I was a problem solver, and I was always trying to problem solve within the structure of the military, and I really struggled with the ranks and having to go through this hierarchy all the time. I wanted to go straight to the top and get my message through. And
you're like Adina, you don't like being told what to do.
well, I'm like, if I have an answer to a problem, I just want to get it solved. I don't want to go through 7 people and wait 3 months to get it there. So if I can fix it now, why not fix it now? So I ended up realizing that the military, as much as I excelled at it, wasn't for me. And it's funny, during boot camp and during polishing my boots and my guns and everything, I used to sing a lot, and everyone used to be like, hey, you know what, you should be a singer. And it's funny because when I skipped a whole part where I was a tall ship sailor and sailed to Hawaii from Canada once, and I worked on this big schooner. I ended up picking up guitar while I was on the sailboat, and I started singing people to sleep at night, and they ended up getting so used to me singing that I basically became the ship lullabyist and started writing lullabies for to keep songs fresh, because I didn't have access to the internet on the boat at that time all the time. So I would just make up my own songs, and that's what got my songwriting career started. So people started asking me for the lullabies, and I'd record them for them, and I ended up sending them to a college. I didn't even apply to the college in Canada, and they accepted me. I sailed to Hawaii, and when I got to Hawaii, I was actually going to be sailing to Japan on the ship, and by the time I got to Hawaii, I'd been accepted into this college, and I had to make a decision then and there if I wanted to be a sailor, if I wanted to be a musician. So I left the ship, went back to Canada, went to college, and then I ended up, within a few months of being at that college, I auditioned for Berklee College of Music in Boston. I found out about that. Ended up getting almost a full scholarship there. And I had done classical piano my whole life. I'd done ballet, but I hadn't really been a songwriter for that long. And I had pretty much a full scholarship to one of the most elite schools in the world suddenly, and was thrust into that. Right when I got there, I mean, I went straight to the head office, met all the people, met the president, met everybody. I knew everybody. And so I ended up taking a bus to New York from Boston every weekend, and I'd skip a few classes and started hustling New York while I was a college student, and got to know the labels. I'd walk right in, walk to the head office wherever I could get through, and ended up meeting a lot of people in the music industry, but really struggled because you almost have to have a hit to get a hit in this industry. The doors aren't really open unless you know people or have direct connections. So I tried really hard, and honestly, I went through a lot of challenges getting into the music industry, but I let everybody know my name, know that I was a songwriter. At first, I was a songwriter in the industry, and that's what I was pushing as my career. So it ended up just by luck one day, somebody got sick in a songwriting camp, it's called. They get a bunch of songwriters together, and they write for the big artists, try to get them hits. And somebody just got sick, had to go to the hospital, and there's an empty room, and I had been harassing them to get into one of these rooms, and they had nobody to fill the gap. So they called me, and I went in, I wrote an amazing song. They loved it. And so they started putting me in more songwriting rooms. And at this point, it was past college. I had my degree. I was about to get, I had a year in the United States after college to work, and then I had to leave, and that was running out. So I really wanted to stay. So I ended up writing 50 songs in 1 month in every genre I could think of, and ended up getting a really big publishing deal as a writer to stay in the country. And within that time, I actually wrote Hideaway, which was a song that was writing for other people, but it sounded so good with my voice that I decided to just keep it and put it out for myself. And it was supposed to be pitched to Mariah Carey, actually. But I just knew there was something about this song, so I kept it. I put it out, put it on my Facebook, and it went viral. I mean, the cumulative views of all the links that are up, I think, are over 1 billion now. So I went from being a nobody, starving artist in New York, to suddenly being like recognized everywhere I went, especially in the UK and Europe, where it went the biggest. And I ended up touring the world. I put my heart and soul into performing. I loved Michael Jackson growing up, so I just knew that if I wanted to perform, I was supposed to be a songwriter. Now I'm an artist. But I said, if I'm going to be an artist, I might as well be the best I can be. So I invested in myself, and I put a lot into my show, and I ended up getting rated in the top 7 best performers in the world. Played almost every festival there was to play all over Europe, Australia, North America. I toured North America, and I toured Europe several times. Then one day, took a break. I was going to do my second album. And I was in Toronto. I had moved to Canada to be closer to my family. I got into an Uber one day at an intersection. My Uber had a green light, and a taxi ran a red light and just plowed us off the road. And that was, for me at the time, the end of my life as I knew it. I sustained a really, really severe traumatic brain injury and lost all the balance on the left side of my body. I lost the ability to digest food for a long time. I had a pounding in my head that was so severe, it just felt like somebody was trying to punch their way out of my skull, and that lasted for almost 2 years. And I literally couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't do anything. I was sensitive to sound, light, any type of stimulation. I couldn't actually even concentrate in a room that had more than 3 people. Just even if they weren't speaking, my brain couldn't even process multiple people in a room. So I had to isolate myself and just be alone, and I stopped talking to everyone, and I thought my life was over, and I couldn't write music. And people just didn't know where I went. I just vanished. They thought I just was gone. And honestly, about a year in, because I declined and I declined and I declined. I got worse for about at least 6 months. Then I stayed about the same, and I wasn't getting better. And it turned out there were some issues actually in my lower spine that were causing spinal fluid to pump into my brain as well, which was causing even more issues, which finally got solved. And I started slowly recovering. And honestly, I had moments where I wanted to throw in the towel, but I just kept remembering what my life had been like before and how much I had worked to get there. And it's hard when my whole life I'd been so athletic, and everything came to me easy. Learning was easy. Achieving anything was so easy for me. And then suddenly I couldn't do anything, and I didn't even know who I was anymore. So it was really, really a challenging time. But then I realized that the only way to get back what I had before was to fight my way back. And one day I woke up and I said, I don't care how much pain it takes. I'll do anything it takes to get my career back, to get my brain back. And I went to all over the place. I went to Los Angeles. I went to Silicon Valley. I offered myself up as a guinea pig to all the experimental therapy that people were trying. And I went on this road to recovery that was long and painful, but I've so far overcome almost every obstacle. I've completely got almost all of my balance back. I've rebuilt my gut and my digestion again. And I've honestly, and then so I decided, I've skipped a lot of what I went through in the music industry. It's a really challenging industry to be in, and especially as a woman. And I just decided I'm coming back independent. I'm going to launch my own record label. I want to develop artists and pave a new road for independent musicians, because there's a lot of bands, a lot of rappers, a lot of male independent musicians. There's hardly any female mainstream pop artists, if not any, that are on the mainstreams on the level that I was before. So I'm coming back as one of the very few independent female mainstream pop artists, and put out my first single in Canada recently, and it already started charting. So just paving my way back. And also I'm very big into conservation. So coming back, I'm definitely going to be having that as a big part of what I do and putting my career towards that. And I'm still figuring that out. I'm launching a company in that world down the road that's still in progress, but met him through the conservation road. And yeah, I mean, I have to say, it's all attitude, and it's all just like, whenever you're in a dark place, you really just have to hold on to. I told a lot of people, because everybody told me, stay in the present, live in the present all the time. But when my present was the worst thing in the world and I couldn't even live in the present, I really looked to the past and the future to keep me going and to sustain me through the present. So I I often tell people, like, live wherever it is that keeps you going and that keeps you moving forward. If you have to pull from the past to get you into the future, do that. Me going back to my past and remembering all those amazing memories that I had is what gave me hope to go forward, and knowing that at some point in the future I would feel better gave me hope as well. And I just had to get through the present to get there. And it was a fight. It really was a fight. It still is a fight even to this day. But
I mean, that
but
the
really,
injury,
yeah.
the injury just sounds incredible. And I know when you said traumatic brain injury, Dennis, who's in this room, raised his hand because he's dealing with a traumatic brain injury. And what's interesting, and it's cool to hear your story, is, I mean, you know, it seems like you've made a relatively full recovery relative to how it could be, I guess. But I mean, the traumatic brain injury community is significant out there that has a physical manifestation and a physical disability. And it's a really untapped community that we've, not just Angel City, but in general, we've struggled to bring into the adaptive sports community, but they belong here. This is where someone with TBI belongs.
Yeah, I really want to get involved in helping, because even through my recovery process, I learned a lot of things that aren't even really widely known yet, that are still new, and that really helped me. And also I learned a lot about mindset that helped me recover that I don't think a lot of people know either. So it's really important for me to get this information out to people and help them through the recovery, because a lot of people, they just stop at some point. They just kind of give up on moving forward. And the brain is plastic, and the brain is lazy in healing itself because it's always focusing on the rest of your body. So you have to actively keep healing your own brain.
Yeah.
And, you know, using your neuroplasticity. And I'm still doing that right now.
So interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, using that to get back on stage right now. Like, I have almost made a full recovery, but not quite. Still pushing through the physical side of things. My brain still collapses when I do too much physical activity. But,
got it.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, Jeff, last but not least.
He's way cooler than me.
I know. Let's hear it. And we don't have a lot of time. I think Lucy wants us to wrap up around 6:05 or 9:05 for you guys. So if you're relatively quick, Jeff, I'll try to sneak in one final question before you.
Okay.
I talk too long.
Hello from Pennsylvania. We're here. I'm in the bedroom I grew up in. Here a few days with my family, and then we're heading out to New York City, swimming the Hudson River with 60 other Navy SEALs. Going to be on Fox and Friends on Saturday morning if you want to check that out. Going to be raising money for homeless veterans. So I grew up here, then I went to college in Florida. After graduating, went out to San Diego to be a Navy SEAL. I went to Team 5, did that for 2 years of training, 4 years at Team 5, and then I was a combatives instructor for four more years in the LPO there. Really amazing experiences, traveled all over. I had a back injury myself and in the Middle East, and then eventually kept getting worse, and I was eventually medically retired for that. And at that time, my best friend was Kyle Maynard, one of my many best friends. But so Kyle was born without arms and legs, but was a champion wrestler, jiu-jitsu fighter, bear crawled Kilimanjaro and Aconcagua. And so I got out of the military, and then me and him went on a trip around the world. We went to over 20 countries, literally all the way around the world, climbed the highest mountain in Australia, dove the Great Barrier Reef, where I was just swimming him around the Great Barrier Reef and everything, holding onto his tank. A lot of really amazing experiences. And we had a swimwear brand too. I founded it while I was still an active SEAL called Sunga Life. So I took the popular swimwear from Brazil and made it patriotic and all about freedom. And then we helped support like the Adaptive Training Foundation and the Forest Blue Team. So it's all about purpose and profitability. And just a lot of really amazing experiences from that, and have made a whole plethora of new friends and new adventures. So.
That's amazing. Trust me, we're going to bring you back and give you more time to share some stories from your days in the SEALs. I watched you on a podcast with Tyson, and you were sharing some stories.
Mike Tyson.
You're going to need about 5 hours at least.
Dude, I mean, it was pretty powerful. It was giving me chills listening to your story. So we'll get you back on a extended platform. So I got like 7 minutes, and I'm gonna see how we do with this last question, because I could ask you guys a million things. So just like I have always been a little hesitant as an entrepreneur. I've kind of helped others, and starting Angel City was something that kind of gave me the confidence to kind of go after it. So I guess I'm curious. I'm really curious. What would you all have taken some significant risks in your lives, especially starting up your businesses. What do you tell the younger self that might have been hesitant or scared or overthinking it or whatever, kind of before you got started? I mean, what do you tell yourself? Maybe rewind a couple years, or if in Adina's case, probably rewind to 5 years when you're first getting See Here started. And Adina, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so what I would tell Adina 5 years ago is it's going to be tough, but you will get through it. There is 70 no's to every single yes, and you will.
What's the ratio? 70 to 1?
Yeah, that's what they say. I don't know. That's, they say. I don't know who they are, but they say it. But anyway, I heard that years ago because, like I said, I've been an entrepreneur for a really long time. I try to. My brain is always looking, solving problems, and I share those solutions with other people. But I've actually taken a couple of big steps on some things. But I know that I'll make it. I'm going to make it. That's it.
So when back in the day, you were unsure. You were worried. You weren't sure or confident you were going to be successful.
No, I knew I was going to be, but it was just so hard hearing the no's and knowing that a woman going into tech at 55 years old is a pretty rare thing. I knew nothing about technology, but here I am. I own a tech company, or three. I'm sorry, 3. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a friend that's a recruiter in the Silicon Valley, and she recruits exclusively women. And we don't realize the Silicon Valley is still very male dominated. And Dina, validates that whenever I talk to her, that it's definitely tough going to be a female CEO in tech.
Kaisa, yeah. So she has the same thing. I mean, it's tough to break in those barriers.
Yeah.
So Kaisa, what do you tell yourself? I mean, you've been through so much, but it feels like starting the label and rallying the independents is. I mean, you've been kind of an artist, an entrepreneur for so long, but taking the step to sort of start a label, start competing against some of these the big boys in the industry. What were you thinking at that moment? Like it seems kind of daunting.
It's funny. I have a friend, he runs Columbia Records, and he's just always been a friend of mine. And I remember just when I was starting to come back from a brain injury, I went over to his house and I was sitting with him and his fiance, and he just said one thing. He's like, I just want you to know that the whole industry has their eye on you because some people are good at singing, some people are good at songwriting, some people are good at having a vision, and some people are good at business. He's like, but you're all those things, and people know that. So everyone has their eye on you because you're coming back, and they know you can do it on your own. And it really hit me. I was like, wait, I really should do this. He's like, not just like, it's not just anyone. And I was like, I have to show people that. I really have to show people that they don't need to be told what they are. I mean, the biggest thing about the music industry, and it's something that I struggled with the most, and I think more women struggle with than men, is that they're told exactly what they should be, what box they should fit into. And if they don't fit into that box, nobody takes a risk on them. If you step outside the box, you're stepping into danger zone. And if you're stepping into danger zone, nobody wants to take that risk, because it's all very much an instant gratification world. Everybody wants the newest hit right now. They don't look as much at long-term success as they do at short-term success. But the long-term success is what actually you should be focusing on. And it's funny that people don't. So I just said, I'm gonna focus on the long term. The biggest, most important thing that I learned that I wish I had done sooner was trust my gut. I knew it didn't matter how successful people were. I knew in my gut who were good people and who weren't good people. And I wish I had just stayed away from the ones where my gut told me that I shouldn't be near them, because every single one of those people was not worth working with. It didn't matter how much success, who they worked with.
And by the way, I'm sure music is full of bad people, but I think you're right. It's across industry. They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. Honestly, there's so many people that are willing to take advantage. And if you let them take advantage, they will too. You have to put up boundaries as a person. So I just told myself one day, I'm putting up my boundaries. I'm going to surround myself with people that I know are good people. And I don't care. Like I ended up actually firing. I had one of the biggest managers in the business. They work with Sia. They work with huge artists, but they weren't doing right by me as an artist.
Wow.
I hired my big manager. I made my choreographer, who choreographed my music video Hideaway for me, the big one. She had never let me down. She wakes up every morning and starts working right away. She had choreographed all my TV shows, and she wasn't a music manager, but I knew that she worked hard. I knew I could trust her. And I knew she knew my whole story, what I'd been through, and she knew the industry because she'd been through it with me. So wow. I made her my manager, and she's doing better than any manager I've ever had.
I love that. And that's so powerful, right? That she almost has your story in her DNA. She can tell your story better than anybody.
So it's really a story together of two women coming up together and supporting one another. And yeah.
All right. Can I get Jeff in there real quick? So maybe give us 2 data points. Like before you join the SEALs, like what do you tell that guy? And then when you go off to start Sunga Life, like these are 2 really challenging things that most mere mortals probably wouldn't try. And Lucy, are you cool with you just take another minute or 2 to get Jeff's story?
Oh yeah, there are no questions coming in from the chat, but we can leave some time for people to ask questions too.
Okay, cool. All right, Jeff, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so before being a SEAL, I was going to do whatever it took, and I had everything go wrong, as I'm sure, sorry, damn it, I got a call. As I'm sure you've seen from the stories, I had everything go wrong for me, but one of the biggest things I've always learned is you stack all the odds in your favor. So even with everything going wrong, I was so prepared. And I was able to reach out to people who were able to vouch for me and get me back in and everything. I say with great risk comes great reward. And I had the most amazing career and fulfillment in the SEAL teams because of that. And I'd say the biggest risk is not putting yourself in control. Like you can have any job that you think is great, but all of a sudden the economy goes down and they can fire you, they can lay you off, everything can. And so if you're not in control, you never know. You never know. So for me, it was always about entrepreneurship. It's harder in the beginning, absolutely. But I just had to kind of stack the odds in my favor. Like going to business school where there's all these amazing resources, and I get paid like a stipend for through the GI Bill to go back to school. And then So as I'm growing my company, I'm able to live off of that while the money goes back into the business as it scales up. And then by the time I finish business school, I'll be able to like get paid well from that and everything. And then all the incredible resources, having lots of friends who do well in business, who are mentors, but also kind of sets you up at the same time to be, have the schedule that you want, where I can work remotely. The pandemic hit, where you said 30-40% businesses went out of business. When mine went up 12x from the month of February to the month of May, it increased 12x. Like it was the revenue, like 1 month was more than most people make in a year. So it's about stacking the odds in your favor and not shying away from risk.
I mean, people still need to look good during the pandemic, right? I mean, you still got to have that good looking suit on.
Absolutely. And also it's set up like I just use a fulfillment warehouse. I use mostly social media for my marketing. I haven't, I've had this company 4 years. I've never even paid myself the whole time because I'm just constantly reinvesting back into the company. So it's all about delayed gratification. I mean, that was the same thing you went through in the SEAL teams when you're out there and you're laying in the surf zone and you haven't slept for 4 days and they're waving, blankets at you, but you're like,
they're waving blankets to taunt you.
Like, you can come out here and get warm.
Oh, if you quit.
Yeah, if you quit.
I got you.
Just ring the bell and this all stops. But
that's so messed up.
It's about delayed gratification. That's it. I mean, there's so many parallels with the SEAL teams and entrepreneurship, and just problem solving. So.
Yeah, I mean, I love the parallels between the military and business in general. And I don't know if you know Captain Duncan Smith.
Oh, he actually helped get me into UCLA. Yeah.
Okay, good. So he spoke at an event I ran in my old corporate days, and he said something that was so interesting. He said the only real mistake, I'm paraphrasing, so don't quote me anybody, but he said something like the only real mistake in war when you're battling an enemy is to do nothing.
Yeah.
He said if you're out trying something, moving, you're learning, you're gathering data, and you can then adjust. But the second you stop and you're complacent, you're at major risk and you're going to lose whatever the battle is. So I thought it was, we could talk about parallels all day long.
If you don't innovate, you're gonna die as well.
Yeah. Similar concept, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
Lucy, are we rolling? Are we switching?
No, so just wanted to open up for like maybe one question from participants.
For sure. I know some of these characters here. Viva, are you there? You got a question for us? She's in high school. She's an amazing adaptive athlete. Viva, are you there?
Maybe you need to.
She's muted.
Take yourself off mute. There she is. Viva, give us a question. This is a great story how we found Viva. My wife, Bahar, who's sitting there under the name of Elijah Freck, saw Viva and her family at a Ralph's market here in Westwood. Jeff, you may have shopped there. And convinced them to come to the first Angel City Games the summer of 2015. And now Viva is a highly accomplished high school track athlete and makes us proud. So,
wow.
All right, here's Viva. She's wanting to know how you got
how'd you start in the music industry?
I mean, it starts with lullabies. You got to tell the lullaby story.
You know what? Honestly, it's exactly what you said earlier. I found something that I was passionate about, that I was really good at, and I kind of stumbled into it by people. I just picked up a guitar one day. I wrote a song. People liked the song. I wrote another song. People like that. And I was just like, well, okay, this is working for me. I'm going to write a song every single day of life. So I started writing a new song every single day.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I didn't realize that wasn't a normal thing.
How old were you when you decided that? Is incredible.
17, so I didn't start songwriting until like late teens, but honestly, like, I thought that was just normal. You could just write a song every day. But so, I mean, I've written thousands of songs in my time, but by the time that's why I got into school so fast. That's why I got a full scholarship to Berkeley within, a few months. It's just because I poured my heart into what I was passionate about, and I worked harder than anyone else at it. And there's something to be said. I mean, talent really isn't enough, but if you have the talent and both the work ethic, you will make it. But honestly, it's the people who work the hardest, even in this industry. Some of them didn't have the same skills that I maybe had naturally, but they built them up eventually. So it's just, I found something I was passionate about, and I found a way to make it my career. And bring it back to what you just said, just keep moving, just keep trying. It was really helpful to be a sailor before I went into the industry, because to sail successfully from point A to point B, you can't go in a straight line. You have to be waiting for the wind, it's always changing on you. You're always changing your course to get from point A to point B.
I love that.
Yeah, so my mindset was always like, oh, the wind changed, I gotta change my sails, but still, you know, I gotta sail here to get to there, sail here to get to there, or zigzag my way. But eventually, you know, I don't know the journey in between point A and point B, but I know I'm going from point A to point B, and that's literally how I navigate my whole life.
A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
she's became a songwriter too.
Who did? What?
Viva.
Viva said she started writing songs now.
Oh, wait, sorry, I need to keep. Oh, keep your dream alive. Just okay. You know what? Actually, if you actually, I just posted today that I'm gonna be. There's a contest for a songwriting lesson by me. If you want to go on my Instagram. but yeah, honestly, if you write, like, if you just work every single day at what you do, and you really have to work every single day, you will succeed in this industry. Like any industry. If you didn't make it, it's because you didn't work hard enough. I know tons of my friends that have made it now. I knew them a long time ago when they weren't successful, and it's the ones that worked the hardest that made it.
And I think you're right. And I would just add, like, there's an element of just working smarter too.
Yep.
Which is having a lot of emotional intelligence and understanding sort of social cues and keeping your emotions in check and kind of that whole side of things, which maybe I had a little bit, but I didn't feel like I had it in my early career. And people that do have it early in their careers, I think have a huge advantage.
Yeah, definitely having social skills really helps, but not everybody has the same social skills. They can be learned. I was gonna say, I remember sitting with Diplo when I met him and worked with him, and you know, he's really big. Then he showed me how many songs he'd written to get to even where he was. And he just showed me a list. There must have been like a few thousand songs, different beats. Like he worked so hard. And I realized that every single one of these people, they worked every single day to get to where they are. And they're still doing it. So, but the wonderful thing about doing something I'm passionate about is I literally never feel like I'm working because I'm always doing something that I love. So I actually, sometimes I sit there and I'm like, man, I really should work. Like, I feel like I'm being so lazy, but then I forget I've been working all day at something I love. It's just, for me, it feels like I'm playing. So, but there is a lot of things I have to do that is business.
Yeah.
Now. So,
I love it.
Especially running my own company now, it's a whole different ball game. But yeah, I hope I've answered. Thank you for this. But if you want to send me your info or something and ask some more questions later, feel free.
Yeah, I can connect you guys too. I know Viva personally, so I can help connect you guys.
I mentor a lot of young artists that are coming up, so I'm always happy.
And Kaisa, just an idea for you. We do a lot of adaptive music, so we feature musicians with disabilities as really everything we do at our fundraising events, at the Angel City Games. And we're going to start doing like music workshops and develop artists with disabilities and kind of help them in their journey. And so maybe that's a place that you would be interested in helping young artists like Viva, who should be playing the Angel City stage, you know, in a couple of years if she keeps going. Or maybe
also just how music is so healing. Like music, honestly, big part of coming back from my brain injury was having music. I picked up the ukulele, something that was much easier than the guitar because guitar was too complicated for my brain. And just being able to have that, it got me through. I do believe music is one of the most healing things on the planet. So I'd love to be involved in anything that could help some other people get through a hard time. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Adina, Jeff, and Kaisa, thank you guys so much for jumping in.
All right, great. So panel number 2.
Yeah. So thank you for joining Career Resource Night at Angel City Sports Virtual Games presented by the Hartford. We hope you enjoyed your first breakout session. Okay, so without further delay, I'm going to introduce our distinguished panel, starting with our host, Sean Kelly. Please take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Sean Kelly. I work for Microsoft. I think I put in the chat already that we have a lot of resources. We are a company that does hire people with disabilities, and it's a big part of our culture is being inclusive. I also grew up with a brother who was born with spina bifida, and one of the reasons I'm involved with Angel City is there was nothing like this around when he was growing up. And just thinking after our last panel of like some of his first jobs, it was literally like selling light bulbs, and it was all people with disabilities, cold calling and identifying that they were handicapped selling light bulbs. You know, there's been a lot of progress with companies in hiring and being more inclusive. So I'm really happy to be a part of this panel today. We also have Rosie Alvarez from the Hanger Company, who is the HR director and talent acquisition director. So the person actually hiring at companies. So she can offer a lot of good advice on, you know, how to get that job, some tips there. And then Joe Gintu from Deloitte, who's a senior manager of risk and financial advisory, who actually is disabled. So I'm going to actually turn it over to Joe to kind of give a quick intro on himself and his background. So if you can talk a little bit about yourself and your background, Joe, and then we'll do the same for Rosie to kick things off. And again, we encourage questions in the chat. We'll definitely be addressing those after some questions I get through, but definitely want this to be an interactive panel.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean, and welcome everybody. I'm Joe Gintu. I've been with Deloitte for about 15 years. I joined the firm just after graduating from the University of Notre Dame, so shout out to Veva. I see your sweatshirt, so go Irish. So I started in 2005 at Deloitte, and then in 2007 is when I actually suffered my spinal cord injury while surfing. So I started the corporate life while ambulatory, and then had to adjust going back to work in a wheelchair. And throughout my career, the company's been very open to supporting me. So when I got hurt, they asked me when I came back, you know, what did I want to change? Do I need adjusted work hours, et cetera? And I essentially said, I don't want anything to change. I want to go back to my quote unquote normal life. And sure enough, the following week, they sent me off to Costa Rica. So, you know, with the international travel, I've also did a several year stint with our Melbourne, Australia office, so nearly 3 years. So they've been very open to support my own personal and career goals and objectives. And again, that's all while being in a wheelchair. So happy to share with you my experiences of what I've found to be a working professional with a physical disability, and any tips and tricks and secrets that I've learned along the way.
Great. Yeah, well, I definitely want to come back to that, but I want to give Rosie the same opportunity to give a quick background on herself and your career.
Thanks, Sean. And first, I just wanted to thank everyone for the opportunity to visit with you this evening. It is a pleasure. I've been looking forward to this all week and very excited to take any questions you have and provide insight. My name is Rosie Alvarez. I'm the Director of Talent Acquisition at Hanger, a company I'm very passionate about. You know, not having been born with the gifts to provide patient care, you know, I really wanted to find some place that aligned with me personally, and wanted to have the ability to make a difference. And Hanger certainly allows me to do that. So I'm happy to kind of talk to you a little bit and share some experiences in terms of career paths. I have one of the more non-traditional HR career paths. It wasn't the vein I thought I was going to be in. But I'm also a big advocate that you don't have to have it all figured out. What you do need to have is the ability to be self-aware, to understand enough about yourself of you know, as you get more like life experience, what do you like, what are you passionate about, and you know, how can you make some changes so that you hopefully do more of what you like and less of what you don't. And eventually you'll look back and realize, wow, I've you know, now been at this better part of 20 years and I love every minute of it. So again, thank you for the opportunity and really look forward to getting to know you all better today.
Thank you both for that. Just touching on what you just said, Rosie, I'm curious with your company, what specific things do you guys do to outreach to this community? Or have you guys gone to specific like job fairs or, you know, similar resource nights like this within your own community? I know you guys are a, you know, global company as well. I'm just curious, you know, what you guys are doing specifically with this community.
Right. So we are doing, I would say our outreach efforts are just, you know, continuing to pick up momentum and becoming more widespread. We have 800 clinics, just about, give or take a few, 800 clinics operating in 47 states. And there's a lot from a local level that happens with, our team members, our employees, our hangar family, that really gets involved in the local communities. We have a number of events that we host ourselves. We partner and we have a thriving hangar foundation that also helps to provide funding, to nonprofit organizations, which, again, helps with the outreach. But from an employment standpoint, we are getting more involved all the time. We have a number of positions that, we think are actually well suited from those who can provide perspective from this community. So where we're specifically looking for those with disabilities, because they're just exceptional and really add value to our patients and to our efforts. So when you talk about outreach, it can be very localized, and it's happening everywhere. But even on a larger scale, we're doing more kind of virtual career nights. We are one of the things we're looking at doing moving forward is to have kind of a virtual night with a recruiter. So, think of almost like a talent advisor. If you have questions, we'll put 3 or 4 recruiters on a Zoom call so that you can just ask questions. Sometimes it's unfortunate, but it almost feels like there's a great mystery around how does someone get selected, and what's the magic trick to getting noticed or hiring. And in fact, there's sometimes a lot of things governing what happens in selection, what happens into the attraction process. And I think, when you are armed with that information, it helps you be a more savvy candidate. And so those are other things that we're doing. But, Hangar is absolutely deeply committed. And it aligns with our environment around inclusivity, and just, having we're in a unique position because we touch patients every single day. We come into contact with this population every single day. And so, broadcasting our positions and even, in many cases, we have employees of ours, clinicians of ours who will say, hey, we have this opening. Have you considered? And we're even pulling patients in some of these jobs and do quite a bit of hiring that way.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Joe, I know Deloitte does a lot of recruiting on college campuses, but kind of similar question to you. How would people on this call, besides your career site and things like that, but are there certain outreach that you guys are doing specific to this community and/or just the general population? Obviously, specific skill sets, but with a company of your size, there's all types of jobs out there at Deloitte.
Yeah, so multi-headed. So you mentioned the campus recruiting. I know that there is some specific inclusion resources that we offer when we do go to campuses to get a diverse field of qualified people to interview. I also know that from a recruiting standpoint, just in the general population, we are pretty active in going to various job fairs and everything. That being said, I mean, the world or even the United States is vast, right? So even if we have representatives of several job fairs or several booths for things throughout, I mean, the chances of reaching all the people on this call or a vast expanse of the community is rare to get everybody. So there is some stuff that Deloitte is doing proactively, including providing resources. I know you shared, Sean, some of the accessibility resources that Microsoft has. I know that there is some specific inclusion highlights even for people with disabilities on the Deloitte Careers website too. So there are paths in which that Deloitte is helping to provide an easier path to find ways to get jobs or be connected to somebody within the firm. But again, I think it's the onus is on the individuals to be a little proactive if you know what type of company you might want to work for, whether it's an industry or a set of companies that hopefully hopefully the company you're looking for will have some type of inclusion resources. But I know Deloitte does specifically, but if you do need support, I think looking at the companies you're interested in sites would be a good resource.
Yeah, great point. I think, putting together that list of, what top companies that you are, whatever the industry is that you want to go after, and then maybe do your research from there on how inclusive they are. Rosie, specifically for you, is there any specific insider advice that you'd give an applicant with a disability?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think my advice to an applicant would be what I would say to anybody is that, you know, approach this job search with energy, with effort, with vigor. It is a contact sport, so don't be afraid to go, you know, to make contacts. Leverage the tools and resources you have around you. I mean, we're blessed to be in an age where, you know, there's sites like LinkedIn and others where you can build, you know, professional networks. You can, you know, explore new information. You can get yourself aligned with groups. And from that, I think don't be afraid to project what it is you're trying to do. Let folks know, you know, hey, you know, this is my background. This is the type of position I'm really looking for. This is the kind of company I want to work within. This is how I think I have, you know, this is what I think I have to contribute. And then ask for help. I tend to believe the best of people, and I think it's in our nature to help others. And so if you're clear about what it is you need and want, and you know, the kind of help you'd appreciate, I think there are others out there who want to help you. But I think when you actually get into an interview process, when you start to take those first steps forward, I strongly encourage you to be your authentic self, to be transparent, to be genuine, to really lean into who you are and your experience and your unique journey, your ability to be resilient, your ability to adapt and to overcome, you know, is really important. And I think many companies find that such an important, you know, trait to have in candidates that I think you should absolutely put it out there and not be shy about it. I really think that you're in a stronger position than you may even realize. So.
Thank you, Rosie.
You're welcome.
I know one thing I always, one thing I learned early on, especially being in a sales career, don't be afraid to ask for the job. Like, ask for the job in the interview. If people don't ask for the job, it almost turns me off. Like, you're here on a job interview, you know, well, close the person at the end of your interview.
It's kind of, and maybe this isn't the most appropriate thing to say, but it's kind of like dating. I mean, you never want to walk away from the first date wanting to know if someone was really, you know, into the moment with you or not. If they walk away with a question, you're probably not dating again. So you want to really let them know, hey, this is what I'm about. One of the ways I like to end an interview is I give a good handshake. I look someone directly in the eye and I'm like, it was a pleasure to meet you. And I would love to be a part of this team. I really hope that I'll hear more from you. I kind of figure I'm gonna make it real hard for you to tell me no.
Right. Dennis, I saw your hand go up. Did you have a question or comment on that? You're on mute right now. Go ahead, Dennis.
What you said about asking for the job, well, that's so basic. It's incredible. I have a lot of experience in sales. And what you have to do in sales is ask for the order. And a lot of people are too afraid to do that. You have to ask for the order, just like you said, ask for the job. It's basic.
Right, absolutely. I think too, what you touched on, Rosie, about being your authentic self, you know, I think can go a long way in an interview process. I know most people with disabilities, just getting out the door every day, they go through a lot more than I know I do. I know watching my brother grow up and just sharing those kind of stories and being, like you said, your authentic self can go a long way in kind of, you know, breaking that barrier of interviewee and making it a real conversation, and, you know, kind of putting yourself in a position where probably more at an advantage versus maybe an able-bodied candidate, because they don't have the same type of story and perseverance and things that you've been through. You know, similar on that vein, Joe, I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit about your disability and maybe how it's been an advantage for you in your role in your company, and, you know, the mindset that you have with that at Deloitte.
Sure. Yeah. So I shared this story on the last panel. I'll share it here. is when I got hurt in 2007, one of the regional leaders that we had polio, so he was walking with arm sticks to help him walk. And as I mentioned, I'm paralyzed, so I was in a wheelchair. So I was asking him for advice on how to manage that in the professional world, almost as a confidence thing, because like I said, my clients and my colleagues all knew me as ambulatory, and now I wasn't. One of the things that he said surprised me. He said, just understand that when you go into a room, and I know we're virtual right now, but imagine it's the normal world where we go into conference rooms or whatever, that you almost have a mental advantage around those that are at the table, and the fact that they see your physical disability, and he's talking from experience, and in some ways that takes them off beat a little bit, and in some ways they're grounded with a little bit of respect that you're actually there. And it's not fully for everybody that all your interactions are going to be like that, but he said just to keep that in mind of the people that you're interacting with, that's a mindset or mentality that they may have. And his advice wasn't necessarily to like use it to my advantage or anything. It was just to be mindful of it, because in some ways, you could segue into a powerful advantage if you know what you're talking about, you present yourself clearly. And one of the best compliments I can get that I've gotten from people is, sometimes I arrive to a meeting early, transfer over to the chair, and the meeting ends, and I feel bad because everyone's up and shaking hands, and I'm sitting there, and I say, sorry, I can't get up, I'm in a wheelchair, and they had no idea. So, I think it's going with the mentality of being confident. If you are going in if you do have a disability, know that doesn't have to be any type of negative thing, and it could possibly be an asset when you enter a meeting. And just like Sean and Rosie said, is being your authentic self, because what you may have gone through whether you have a disability or not, it builds your resilience, it builds who you are, and why not? Why leave who you actually are at the door? You should be bringing your entire self to work, into a meeting, and to interviews.
And I think companies these days too want different perspectives. And there's been a lot of studies that it showed, not having people with the same background on similar teams creates a lot more creativity and ultimately more productivity in the long run. Short term, sometimes there's some issues, but long term, there's definitely a lot of upside, which is I know why we're as a company like yours, Joe, we're embracing it. Kind of back to your guys' own personal story. I'd love to hear more about the beginning, maybe Rosie, like your first foray into a corporate job. I know we heard it on the last panel, and I thought it was a really good story of, making, a bold choice and being aware of kind of who you are and embracing change as well. If you want to maybe share kind of that similar story with this crowd of how you pursued one thing, got into it, and then realized maybe it wasn't for you, and how you made that transition.
Well, I will say that life's an evolution, that's for sure. And I think, frankly, there's a lot of pressure on people as they come out of high school and enter college, if that's their path, or whatever avenue you pursue. There's a lot of pressure when you're young to have it all figured out. And so, you're impressionable and much can shape you. And so I actually started, my degree is in criminal justice and criminology. I actually got my first position after having leveraged an internship. There was a pretty exclusive internship offered only once every other year at the Attorney General's office in Indiana. And I did not have the luxury of going to Notre Dame. Not that student. Wait, not that student. I was at Ball State. And so I went and just nagged the professor, essentially our department head, because only seniors could apply for this. And I just nagged and nagged and nagged and nagged. To my point earlier, make it hard for them to say no. I made it really hard for him to say no. And he said, sure, go apply. And I don't think he really thought that I would get it, but lo and behold, I did. And so as a junior, I accepted, this internship, worked all summer, and I was really good at what I was doing. And so they offered me a position. Only one of 6 investigators for the entire state. And that was exciting. And I jumped at it, thought this was great. My big Law and Order moment, bump, bump. It's, I thought it was going to be all of that. I spent a year going back and forth to, my university, which was an hour and 15 minutes away. I, had already commitments at school. So I was, at night I was college student, and during the day it was, bump, bump. Well, I realized after 3 or 4 years there, almost 4 years, that, wow, I don't want to be shot at, and I don't want to shoot anybody. And, I said this before, but it's really true. If you've seen my bumper, you would know I barely drive on a good day. So arming me is a terrible idea. Law enforcement was not going to be my path. And so, I had to really make a decision around that, to understand that I'd gotten a little bit of life experience. I found out a little bit more of who I was as a person, and it helped to kind of shape the next path and next decision I made around, pursuing. I actually ended up moving, after that role I became a workers' comp adjuster. I didn't even know what that was. I became a workers' comp adjuster for an insurance company, and realized, oh yeah, I'm not a good adjuster either. I talk too much, and I'm kind of squeamish, and I tend to think the very best of people. So yeah, work comp adjusting wasn't it. But I say this to just kind of say that you sometimes have to feel your way. You're no one's victim. You have the power to change your circumstances with a career at any time. It doesn't mean it's not hard. Doesn't mean that you don't have to invest yourself. Doesn't mean you have to prepare yourself differently. But if you recognize that you're not happy in the path that you're on from a career standpoint, you own the responsibility to make that change. And so part of that is helping to just ask some real questions around, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. Just because you can be, X, Y, Z. I could have stayed in law enforcement. I would have been miserable. I could have stayed in adjusting. I would have been miserable. But what I found, because I've made these course corrections as I've gone along, is that I've now pieced together a career that spans more than 20 years. I've helped many, many, many people find great jobs. I've worked with a lot of different companies to help them find great people for roles. And it's that match that's just, never loses its zing for me. But that's me. And I think that every single person has that pursuit, and it's going to evolve and change as your personal priorities evolve and change. Sometimes it's within the same company. Sometimes it's in a whole different career field. Sometimes life will help to dictate when you need to make a change. I've had that experience too. But if you're open to, opportunities, and you're willing to push yourself and to, take on some challenges and learn and grow, I think you're going to find that things work out just the way they're supposed to.
Yep. Embrace the change, because I don't care what company you work for, it's coming.
Yeah. Be a change junkie. It's good.
We're having at Microsoft, for my team, a virtual kick site that's, instead of lasting 2 days, is lasting 5 weeks. And our theme right now is change makers. And we're all sharing, depending on what sessions we're in or what we're leading, who like our change maker, like hero is, if you will. So it's been a fun to hear from all of our different speakers about that. Joe, I'm curious for you and your career, what is it that really kind of excites you about the business that you're in, and how you're able to, stay motivated and continue in your career? It looks like you've had a nice evolution. You've been at Deloitte quite a long time. Most people these days, change jobs every 2 to 3 years. If you look at my LinkedIn, I've done that for a long time. At Microsoft now, hoping to ride this out for a long time. After actually really happy I'm with large corporation right now, given everything that we're going through with the pandemic. But I'm curious more about you, Joe, specifically on your journey, and if you can just share with the group kind of some of the things that you do and what excites you about being a part of that team.
Yeah, and one of the secrets to my time at Deloitte is I've actually had probably about four to five careers there too. Even though I've been there for 15 years, like I said, I did a 3-year stint in Australia. That was almost a completely segmented time. So I agree, and it's exactly on point with what both of you are saying regarding change. I've just been able to find it within the confines of the organization to keep things agile and interesting. So yeah, on a day-to-day basis, I consult with clients and people, and talk to them about some of their risks and compliance and how that impacts the organization. So coming out of college, I knew nothing about any of that stuff, but just kind of learned. And, you know, was I a kid saying I want to be that when I grew up? Absolutely not. I actually like, you know, kind of envisioning what I want my life to be like and in general. And I take it from all different angles, from personal to family to health, and then professionally. And having that sort of longer term vision, I don't know how A is going to get to Z, but I want to get to Z at some point. And when I get to Z, I'll probably go to AA. But you know, I think it's been good to be there and have the constant challenges day to day. I mean, with this whole virtual environment, now we have to adapt and be agile to how to now do, you know, maintain relationships. And I know you, Sean, you're in sales, maintain relationships virtually. You know, it'd be easy to take people out to a meal or a coffee before and get to build rapport, but now it's a whole new adjustment. So I just like, you know, I have a balance of some technical skills I need to apply. I need to interact with various people across organizations, various teams within the firm. So yeah, I mean, I was telling my wife earlier today, my job, no 2 days look the same with regards to what I need to do on various projects or pillars or anything. So that keeps things exciting.
Great. And I know in the last panel I'd asked you, and this definitely resonated with me, like if you did leave Deloitte, which doesn't sound like you're going to, what would be some of the attributes you would look for in a company? And I think you touched on, you know, some larger companies might have more advantages for people with disabilities. So I'd love for you to touch on that a little bit.
Sure. I'll say there's two components. And I'll say one of them is evaluating and understanding what that company stands for and understanding, you know, what they do and how they are committed to making a better good, the world a better place. So either directly in what they do for their product or their philanthropic arms. So that's one thing. But two, one thing that I've come to realize being at a larger company like Deloitte, I think we're at 200,000 people globally, is, you know, with some bigger companies, they have contracts with bigger healthcare organizations. So my health insurance, like I said, I was at the firm when I got hurt. So, and I had very good insurance at the time. So thankfully, I you know, there's still large expenses I had for the spinal cord injury, but was greatly covered by that health insurance, plus to some of the other support from the firm. So that is another aspect. If I looked at another company, I would want to understand, you know, what that health coverage looks like, because being here, they've been very supportive and have direct contacts at, you know, United Healthcare, Aetna, whoever, to help foster some of that process. So you're not just stuck in the middle of somewhere, but they can actually contact somebody directly. So I've had a lot of good support for a lot of the medical supplies that I've needed. So that would be important to understand another organization that I'd be joining.
How have you seen it change over the course of the last 15 years? It seems, you know, they somewhat progressive there, you know, with, you know, the way that they responded to your injury. But I'm just curious, like what evolution have you seen or have you been a part of as well to make it a more inclusive environment?
Look, I work with a lot of tech and media companies too, and the comment that I'm about to say is applicable to them. There have been meetings where, so my ethnic background is I'm Filipino and Italian, but I've been in meetings with other partners or higher level people, and you look around the room and it's a lot of, I'll say white males, and there was another Asian male in the room, and I was like, I don't necessarily realize it until you take a step back and understand and look at the landscape. And there's nothing necessarily gravely wrong with that, but one of the evolutions that you asked about is there has been a lot more inclusion programs to help elevate women, people of color, people with disabilities, to understand how and why, you know, the room looks like the way it does, and understand, you know, that should that be progressing. And I think the general answer is, yeah, it should be progressing to something a little more diverse. So I have seen those programs be put in place, and I have seen lots of energy, effort put into that. The firm and the company that I work with are still very, very far from getting to some level of equity with that, but it's very, very good to see that you know, it is high on people's agendas. And in a lot of the tech companies I work with actually put out very public annual reports about their specific diversity within their organization, and you can look at them and see how they've progressed or haven't. because they want the public to judge them or see them on what they're doing well and what they're not. So they're really putting their money where their mouth is by doing that, I think.
Yeah, no, great point. And trust me, as a white male, I'm very well aware of that issue. We definitely report ours at Microsoft and have a huge initiative around it to be more inclusive. But even as someone as a hiring manager, it's just, filling my pipeline with as many people of diversity as possible is sometimes challenging, I'll be honest. And it's something that we talk about a lot at the company, how we can do better there. Rosie, same question to you. Yeah, or did you have a comment?
Well, I was just going to comment about that because we did talk about it in the prior session, but I know that there is, and studies have shown it, that there's a reluctance from those with disabilities at times to disclose. During the hiring process, there is an EEO form that candidates are asked to complete. And there are, I was looking through a talent pool today. We have a major leadership position open. And we had 6 or 7 people within the talent pool opted out of disclosing. The reason why I want to bring this up is that I thoroughly encourage you to disclose, because the way we use that information, if you're a company like Hanger, that we are deeply committed around making sure that we're representative of the people we serve. We're making judgments and decisions and investments on our talent acquisition strategy based sometimes on how you're responding to those questionnaires. So what happens is at the end of the year, like last year, we had nearly 60,000 applicants. Now that's a lot for a company that only has 5,000 employees. We had 60,000 applicants. And what we do is we go back and look at every single one of those applicants to take a look at, were we able to develop diverse applicant pools? And we use the information that you're using in those EEO forms to point us in the right direction of, hey, are our marketing efforts paying off? Are we able to get in front of qualified, diverse applicant pools who may have interest in our company? Are we getting the marketing in front of them so that they know there are positions to apply to? We can't make adjustments on those investments and make sure that those sourcing channels are working if we don't know what the pool representation looks like. It also helps us to take a look, with our own managers and with our own teams, to make sure that as not only do we have the attraction piece, which my team owns, right? Talent acquisition, we own attraction. Can we attract the right talent pool? But then we have to go back to our managers and really, help them to ensure that the selection criteria that they're using is fair, that it absolutely aligns with what's going to be successful in this position. And if, there are challenges, it helps us to see it. But all of that is for naught if we don't know what the makeup of the pool is to begin with. So, until I really understood that, I too kind of balked at it as my husband is Cuban and Spanish. So my children, are diverse. And I used to kind of get a little squirrely about getting asked questions around disclosing, I'm like, why does it matter? How about kids? Does kids qualify? Well, now I understand what goes beyond that it's really helping to drive investments and decisions that actually end up opening things up for our underrepresented populations. Not to nerd out on the HR stuff, but I just nerded out.
No, that's why you're on the panel. We're coming up on 7, and I definitely want to be inclusive with providing time for everyone to have a question if they do have one. And again, it could be anything related to, jobs, careers, questions for the panel. So I'm just going to take a breath here and pause and see if there's any questions that are going to either come in the chat or if anyone wants to ask one live. Okay, that was the 8-second pause, which is the new recommendation to let people be comfortable. So I will keep going. One piece of advice, and I know there's some young people on the phone. Joe, I'll go to you. What advice would you give yourself? And you might have to go back some time now. What advice would you give to your younger self when you were first thinking about entering the corporate world?
Yeah, I would say, be ready to be fierce and work work really, really hard, but also make sure that you enjoy the journey, and don't, you're not going to get to A to Z in one day. So don't be disappointed if you need to take a few steps, a few career changes, a few whatever, to get to where you want to go. So I held myself to a very high standard, and I got discouraged if I saw peers that were progressing differently than I was. But I think it's just enjoying the journey and expressing gratitude, and especially with having a disability, being as aggressive as I can with my career journey, but also appreciating that, I've mixed in going to physical therapy during the work hours and adjusting my work hours to go to that. And that might have slowed my career progression in ways that, although I tried to make up for it, it might have impacted it. So it's just enjoy the journey, being grateful for what we have, and don't take everything too seriously, and just laugh, take a step back and laugh at yourself every now and then.
Thanks, Joe. Same for you, Rosie. What would you give your advice to a younger self entering the corporate world or workforce today? Obviously, a lot's changed.
Well, I would say this, as a recovering type A, I've had 4 children, so I can't be type A anymore. I just am trying to roll with the punches. But as a recovering type A, what I would say to my former self is, don't rush. You're relax. You're enough, and there's value in the experience that you're getting. Work hard. Really invest yourself in the moment, but be present for it, because there's really valuable learning even in the most basic of roles. Those steps are really necessary. And as someone who's spent a good majority of my career doing executive recruiting, I have seen what happens. I have seen the missteps of leaders who have rushed through the process and who have escalated and elevated quickly. They miss really key, important learnings on their climb up that rung, up that ladder. So don't skip them. Yeah, I know you're in a rush. I'd say this to myself. I know you're in a rush, Rosie. I know it's not fast enough, and not moving forward is failing. That is a very errant way of thinking. There's real value in these moments and in these lessons. Look around you at the people that you aspire to be. Be careful the company you keep. I think that there's some importance there, that it's more important to be credible than loved. I think that you can't have the second without the first. Be credible, earn the respect. But the key is to earn it. But be very patient with those first steps into your career. It's worth it sometimes to hang on an extra 6 months or 8 months in a tough situation, because you're learning something so that you can make a smart decision when you make the next move, and you'll grow from that.
Thank you. I'm going to answer the same question to myself. For me, it's like over prepare and do your research. The first question I usually ask to anyone who comes in to interview for a job from me is, who's the CEO of Microsoft? And I'm telling you, 50% of the people don't know it, and I won't hire that person. You didn't do research on the company you're coming to interview with, and it's all out there. So over prepare, do a ton of research, write down answers to the questions that you think you might be asked, and ask for help. Do have someone interview you before you go on an interview. Don't just go, I'll see how I do. You don't want to just see how you do. You want to be prepared and know that you're going to do well. So just over prepare, answer all those questions, write them down, and then forget about it, so they come off very naturally when you're in that interview process, like Rosie would probably advise as well. But all the resources are out there, so just over prepare, ask for help, and know your audience. If you're interviewing for a role, do your research on that person you're interviewing. Know where they've worked, who they've worked for, where they went to school, all those kind of things. I mean, they sound straightforward, but I'm telling you, so many people don't know the basics.
And that's a great note to end on. Thank you, Sean.
I created, it was the Naked Warrior camo, so it has little tridents in it, and they pay homage to the original frogmen who were clearing the beaches in Normandy and Iwo Jima. And I just made like my first like 50 board shorts of it, and I had like my first sample that I like, okay, this is a really good fit, super comfortable, really functional, 4-way stretch and everything. And just from that, the pictures I put up from that, immediately they all sold out. And I'm like, okay, by the time my first order came in and I sent them out, I was already out of stock. And then I scaled it up big time, boom, like out of stock again, scaled it up. And so the whole time I was going out of stock. Then I was like, all right, now I need a product for winter. I created the Whoopee hoodie and with my own camo pattern, leveraging the success of that, but then made like another 5 camo prints as well. And so then I just did this huge like order. For me, it was huge at the time. It was like $35,000 to try to make sure I'm not going to run out of stock for like this upcoming summer and everything. And then all of a sudden I was out of stock by like May, and in like a couple of months. And I'm like, okay, this is, and then like, and now it's had to be, I just had like $100,000 of stuff made in the last like 6 weeks. So it's just like all of a sudden it's like you gotta think growth isn't linear, you know, it's not like just gonna be a steady, it's like all of a sudden you can like put around, and all of a sudden it can explode on you. And it's like very, very exciting for, you know.
I love it. So I've already planted a little seed with Jeff that we need to explore some Angel City Sungas.
Yeah, totally.
So I love just all the creativity you're bringing to it. So I'm gonna just summarize for you. Your moment was on the beach when the Brazilian girl said, "Men look good in sungas."
And there was no other American sunga company. Like, all right, like, you know, for the last year and a half, if you Googled sungas, my company was the one that comes up in America.
I never even heard of it. So yeah, you're right. All right, Kaisa, and you did share your moments, I think, in the last session, which I thought was really powerful. But give us your story, but also like, when did you know with confidence it was time? You were ready to start probably your label, but you could also, you know, whatever point you think is.
It's a long story, like telling my whole story, but essentially, I won't tell like my whole story of becoming a musician, but I was in the Navy and I was a sailor, and when I was on the ship, I started songwriting, singing people to sleep, and it was just a passion of mine. I loved songwriting, and people kept asking me for my songs and kept asking me to record them. So that's when I started realizing that music is something I could pursue, because there's a demand for my music that I'm making. So I recorded my first demo. I ended up sending that to a college and was accepted without even applying. I ended up applying for Berklee College of Music in Boston, which is one of the most acclaimed music schools in the world, and ended up within a few months getting almost a full scholarship there. So I went there, and honestly, there's just so many different levels to my career and what I do. Like that moment on the ship was when I knew that I could do that. Music was something I could do as a career. But when skipping ahead, gosh, I'm trying to like sum it up because it's such a long story. I started my own label after going through a lot in the industry and being knocked down over and over and taken advantage of several times by almost everybody in the industry. And this is something I actually didn't tell them in the last room, was the amount of people that saw an opportunity to take advantage and did, down to the point of even my business manager is now in jail for 7 years for stealing, laundering, and
wow.
Yeah, down to my tour manager found a way to steal money. It's just everyone at every level, because I didn't know I was this naive musician, and everything for me picked up really fast. For those of you who don't know me, I have a song called Hideaway that went viral. It's accumulatively all the links to the videos on different websites are over 1 billion views now, and it went viral. I mean, it happened so fast that I couldn't have prepared myself for that. So I mean, that was a moment where I realized, wow, I was a songwriter before, but I was like, wow, I could be an artist now. But I was taken advantage of so much in the industry. And I started talking to my friends, my fellow musicians about it, and realized that I wasn't the only one in this position. This was actually almost every single person I knew was in this position in some way. and stuck in contracts, stuck in limbo, being told they sign, you know, artists create something themselves, then they get signed to a label, then the label tells them what to create, but they're not the creators. And so they get stuck in this middle limbo where the label doesn't want to take a risk on their new ideas. They want them to just sort of be the same thing, but you can't make the same song twice. There's no such thing. So there's so many artists in limbo, and it's actually really dangerous signing to a major label for that reason. And nobody tells you when you're young and coming up, even in your music school, wherever you go, it's always like your goal is to sign to a major label. But I realized when I signed to a major label that was the end of the road for me, that they almost ended my whole career. And it was the biggest mistake I ever made. I actually launched myself independently and got myself to #1 in almost 21 countries in Europe independently as a pop musician, signed to a label, and everything went down from there. Wow. And I'm independent again, and everything is just going up. And I realized that you can be independent. You just have to, if someone had told me this, you know, 6 years ago, yeah, I would have taken a whole different road, but nobody told me. I didn't know. And so I'm making it my mission to not only launch myself independently again, I'm launching a label so that I can develop musicians, not to own them, to actually do right by them, and to give them ownership of their own music, to just support them, to do what nobody else is doing for them. And also, I want to lead by example and show other independent musicians that a label is not necessarily the road to go. In fact, I really think it's changing now. Social media has given everyone access to the whole world if you learn how to use it. Anyone can put their songs up on Spotify and all the distributors and get it out there. And so it's just a matter of being willing to do the work to do it, being willing to deconstruct the industry. It's hard, and doing your research. But I'm setting an example for other musicians who don't even know that it's a possibility to make it as an independent musician, especially as a mainstream pop artist. It's more known for bands and for even some rappers and indie artists, but not for a mainstream pop artist, especially a female. So I'm paving a road, and I'm already doing very well at it. My songs are starting to blow up in Germany, around Europe. They're starting to be played in Italy on the radio. I charted in Canada, and I just started printing out new music a few months ago. So
I love your passion for helping everyone behind you. And my remarks earlier in the evening at the beginning were kind of similar, which is I feel like, you know, to some extent, the system is sort of, it's almost sort of inherently dysfunctional, whether you're an artist or you're trying to go the corporate route. It's really hard to know how to make those big career strategic decisions along the way, which is why I'm really starting to do more career coaching and that side. Cause I just think, you know, if you're coming out of college and trying to navigate this world, it's really complex. And you can so easily end up down a road that you didn't intend, and you didn't really understand those long-term implications. So I love that you're doing that for recording artists. Amazing. All right, Adina, your background, your story, but also I want to hear that. How did you know you had something?
Okay, first, I'm a late bloomer. I say that. I mean, I've been doing something odd all my life. So, but I guess when I knew I had something is when everybody said, no, you'll never get a patent. And it was just meant that I had to prove even harder that this makes sense. And then when we discovered the accessibility angle of our technology, that it's going to impact other people's lives in such a positive way, I had that, aha, finally, you know, that people are starting to understand that there's a whole bunch of people in the world that are just sidelined because they don't have the full accessibility of the internet and learning online, and because they may be dyslexic, they may be autistic, they may have other cognitive problems, and they may be a paraplegic, they may be a quadriplegic. Whatever it is, you know, I found that we have what it's going to make a difference. And one of the things that I know is that every time I had those no's, I knew there was a yes coming, and that all those other businesses that I've had in the past, I mean, literally after I turned 50, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different businesses. 3 are current right now, but the other 2 were just, they spurred me on because they made perfect sense. I mean, we had America's first wearing white. When I say that, it was a sleeve you wear on your arm and you just wipe your mouth across it, because typically that's what guys do. They're out playing sports, and what do? Boys take their shirt and they wipe their face or their forehead or their nose or whatever. And I said, why can't you just have a sleeve and you just wipe your face on it, and you can take it and throw it in the washing machine when you get home? And I was trying to solve a problem that NASCAR had, which was trash on the track, you know. And I said, so why don't all the Bubbas just get them a sleeve, put it on, when they're eating their chili dog, just wipe their face on it and take it, slip it in their pocket and go home, you know. So that made sense, and that would have been a great idea. We were already prepared to go on Shark Tank, and then within 12 hours before our flight, we'd already sent all our stuff out to Sony. They had a change of plans, and they called us and told us we wouldn't be coming. And I literally about died, because we had made a contract with the Dallas Lighthouse for the Blind, and they were actually manufacturing our sleeve for us. And I saw the positive impact it had for the individuals in Dallas at the Lighthouse, because they were super excited about the possibility of this going, you know, carrying on these sleeves. But then we had this 5-year contract with Shark Tank that we couldn't violate, and that meant that we couldn't sell anything until after 5 years. So, you know, we actually had an attorney tell us we shouldn't even do it, never sign that contract, because there are all these little loopholes in there for them, but not for the entrepreneur. So then the next one was another NASCAR thing, and it was more of trying to help David Reagan. He had a dealership out in Perry, Georgia, and I thought, you know, why don't we just figure out a way to bring animal rescue organizations and help children learn how to take care of animals. Because, you know, if you can learn to take care of something other than your immediate needs, then you're going to have a positive impact on the world in the future. So, so that was another thing we did. And then when I was home, Butch and I were talking, we were watching a race, and I said, I was looking at my analytics from the NASCAR that we had, a couple of the races, and I was looking back at all my ads that had been running, and I was like, this $13,000, $20,000 for these videos, because you have to pay NASCAR their portion, this guy his portion. I was going, it just doesn't make sense. I just want an image with sound. That's it. Car crash, and then the person winning the race. That's it. That's the only 2 things that people really care about at NASCAR. Who wins the race and the car crash. Believe it or not, but anyway, that's what they like. So I said, so I just want that, and then I reached out to my brother, and I said, look, I need help with this. I don't know, how do we do this? And he said, let me call somebody. And so one thing led to another, and we created See Here. It was called I'm a Tune at one point. We were using music and images, but we advanced, and then we realized we were good for accessibility. And then I met a man named Jonathan Josephson, and combination of our technology, it's going to be amazing. You will see it. Angel City Sports will have it first. So it'll be in the app, and it'll be on your website. So it'll be a fun time. And from there, I opened up Adaptive Apps, and I see Linda's on here tonight. She's the CEO of Adaptive Apps. I can't do 2 companies at once. And then earlier this month, we opened up another company because we saw the usefulness of our technology for sports. So we'll get into that later. But anyway, I don't know. I don't stop. I just keep going. I don't know. Clayton always goes, Adina, he's like, I think he's almost scared to call me. What are you doing now?
No, thank you all for sharing. All right, so my next question, I'm going to dig a little deep into your souls, hopefully. So I'm really interested in the concept that our pain, our struggles, our failures, our traumas even, can be used, and the word I like to use is a slingshot, can be used as a slingshot to success, to triumph, to whatever, to purpose at times. So I'd like to, and listen, I'll tell you this. My personal journey, when I think about that, is I moved around a lot as a kid. My parents were divorced. I never felt like I belonged anywhere. I was always the kid from somewhere else. I was never the kid from wherever I was. And that has driven a lot of my sort of professional and not, just after work, it's kind of driven me. And frankly, that is the most important thing to me about Angel City Sports, is that we create a place and a sense of belonging for kids, adults, and veterans with physical disabilities. That is number one for me. So that's my little journey of the thing that sort of was my struggle. So talk to me about your biggest failure, your biggest struggle, your biggest challenge, your biggest trauma, and what did you learn from it, and how has it fueled your success in life now? And I'm going to start with you, Kaisa, because I feel like you have that one on the tip of your tongue.
Yeah, so I skipped over a real big part of the past few years, and that is that, so I had a song go viral, Hideaway, as I mentioned, and charted in almost every country in Europe, toured the world. I toured every continent almost. And then I came back and I was working on just getting ready to start my second album. And I was in Toronto, Canada. I'm from Canada. And got into an Uber one day. I was just going to dinner, and a taxi ran a red light and T-boned us at the intersection and just plowed us off the road. And I sustained a really, really bad traumatic brain injury, which ended my career as I knew it. It was amazing how that revealed everybody in my life who cared about me and everybody who didn't, because so many people in the industry just sort of wrote me off. Oh, she's done. Okay, we'll abandon her. They didn't care. They didn't send me any letters. They didn't even call me up. Oh, she's in a car crash. She's done, gone, including my own management at the time. And it was the most depressing thing. Again, I have to move really fast. It's really hard to tell my story in a short amount of time, but I couldn't do anything for about a year. I was in a dark room for a good 6 months before I was able to even come out and start being around light and more sound and anything that was high stimulation. But the perseverance that it took to come back, I had lost the balance on the left side of my body. I had lost the ability to digest food. I had a pounding in my head that was so hard. It felt consistently all day, every day, like somebody was trying to punch their way out of my brain, out of my skull. And it drove me insane to the point where I was ready to end it all because it was so painful. But I didn't. And what it did reveal was the people who did care about me, and which was not the people I expected, actually. It's amazing how you don't necessarily know who your friends are until something really bad and traumatic does happen. But it was such an eye-opening thing, because it revealed to me that the people that stuck around and the people that stuck by me and the people that cared are the people that are still in my life today, the people that are still working with me today. And those people, they never let me down then, and they never let me down now. Like they became my tribe. And it didn't matter how much success people had. If they didn't stand by me at the worst time, they weren't going to be there when I was coming back. And it has changed everything in my life. Just the people who surround me now are so different than the people before. And my life is exponentially better in all ways. Wow. Just by choosing the people that I associate with. It's really hard. I mean, we're told all these things like, don't burn bridges, I burnt so many bridges. I was like, gone. And they're all swimming back now because I'm coming back. But I know, I mean.
But what a blessing, what a powerful lesson of the word that comes to my mind is like a filter.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, right. The worst thing that ever happened to me ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me, as hard as it was to go through. And I'm so fortunate that I'm coming back almost stronger than I was before. There still are setbacks that I'm pushing my way through, but I mean, I have all my arms and legs and fingers and toes, you know, and the invisible injury I do have is still a challenge, but I learned so much about neuroplasticity, again, that I'd love to work with you in the future about helping other people with that. But the brain is plastic, and the nice thing about the brain is it adapts when it has to. And so when the brain is forced to adapt, it will. And that's what I learned that made me regain all my balance and everything again. I put my brain in a position where it had to either adapt or it couldn't move forward. And so I was challenging myself all the time. But
well, yeah, I think maybe you and I need to have some separate conversations around, are there some of those techniques that could apply to our broader community? We have a lot of people with strokes and TBI and all kinds of neurological things as well.
I'm still dealing with the TBI, so absolutely.
So I love
and
it.
Also the psychological things that, I mean, we'll have a conversation about this later, but that's a big part of it. But yeah, I mean, I'd say the trauma, and had I not just said, I'm gonna get through this, I wouldn't have moved forward at all. But when you push through resistance that comes your way, there's no way to not come out a stronger person. So the obstacles that are put in your path will make you stronger if you overcome them. There's no way not to grow from that. And so if you look at your obstacles as these opportunities of growth, and everything that comes your way that's hard or a challenge, just look at it as an opportunity that's going to make you grow in a way that you could have never imagined. And everything can become a positive thing.
Right. No, I have learned that lesson from the disabled community. I mean, from our athletes, and I think that's we just need to make sure it gets out to everyone. You know, the people that are here today, and I know most of our athletes that are on the call. I mean, they get it, but there's for every one of our athletes, there's 1,000 or 2,000 people out there that don't have the community. So I love it. Jeff, give us your I mean, I heard about some of your failures on that Mike Tyson podcast. It was pretty cool, but what's the one that stands out for you that was the worst thing you could have imagined, and what have you gained and benefited from it?
For me, it was I got really sick right before Hell Week was about to start. So if you guys know about SEAL training, it's like 3 weeks of INDOC, 3 weeks of first phase of BUDS. Then you start Hell Week. And between that, it gets rid of almost 80% of the people in the first month and a half. And usually Hell Week's hard enough. And I got viral gastroenteritis Friday before Hell Week started. So I was just throwing up nonstop. I would drink water, throw up. I could only take like IVs, and I was so dehydrated. The IVs were just wouldn't even go in my veins.
What is that? The viral?
Viral gastroenteritis. It's kind of like the flu times 100. And so you're just extremely sick. So then I couldn't eat for 2 days. Then I was finally able to like get a dinner down, and then started Hell Week on Sunday. And so I was probably like 15 pounds underweight, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm starting, like I'm good, don't even worry. But from being so dehydrated and starting Hell Week, where you run probably 50 miles with a boat on your head, rips all the skin off the middle of your hair. It's like you have big giant pepperoni scabs like Friar Tuck or something. And then you lunge with telephone poles for miles. Then you go out into the water, like, all right, you're tired, go out, you lay in the water in like 50-degree water for an hour doing surf torture. And it's just one after the other. And it's kind of dehydration, hypothermia, and extreme exertion can all lead to rhabdomyolysis. And I was doing like all of them nonstop. So I was like the last person left that didn't make it in that class. And I had gotten so weak, it felt like I was being stabbed in my legs with like a knife, and that I had concrete blocks on for feet. But it's like never diagnosed, because everyone quits when they get it. And so no one had ever been diagnosed with it before, and they just saw me performing bad, and they gave me like a few warnings, and then they performance dropped me, and I was out. And I was telling them, I'm like, hey, I'll go to surf zone, you can surf torture me, you can do whatever. They're like, no, you don't. They're like, it doesn't work like that. So everyone else made it through the rest of Hell Week, and they dropped me, but I started calling all the SEALs that I knew, and they called and started vouching for me, and I got back into I was able to get back into the next class, the first person that ever had that happen. And then I go into the next class, and I had never failed a single evolution until like Hell Week started. I had every 4-mile run, every 2-mile swim, every oak course, every knot tying, drown proofing. And then I start this class and I'm like failing everything because now my body's not working. I still had rhabdo. So I'm like, what the heck is happening now? And rhabdo is when your muscles, they break down so much that your blood becomes filled with muscle waste and toxins and everything. And all of a sudden I had been able to run and everything was easy. And then like now I can't, all these like timed events, I'm just failing. And I'm like, something's wrong. I go to an instructor after I come in last place by 6 minutes on timed run like a 48 4-mile. And then I go to medical and they draw my blood and then my blood comes back toxic. And I'm like, they're like, oh, so then I'm like, all right, start all the way over again. And then now I got healthy. Everything was feeling good. Ty Woods was actually one of my instructors, who was like the hero Benghazi that 13 hours is based off of. And then I come back and I run, probably had the biggest improvement ever. I took 12 minutes off my run time, run like a 28 minute 4-mile on the beach in boots and everything. And then now I'm just like laughing my way through all the training. And it just made me realize, especially like a few years down the road, like, you know, like SEAL training is hard, Hell Week is hard, all these things are, but to be challenged all the way down to my core and had it ripped away, and to still be able to call on these different strengths, even just like communicating and like, you know, from Strength Finder, like winning others over, like all these people call in and vouch for me, all these things that like I had to have, or never would have gotten even a second chance. And then to be able to still make that, then now that has made like the entrepreneurial journey so much easier. So anytime something goes wrong in business, I'm just like, well, I'm like, this isn't Hell Week with rhabdo, like everything, like, you know, and I realized there's always a solution. I made it out of that when I was the first person ever diagnosed with rhabdo, and still graduated like in the next class after that. Once I got healthy, I'm like always a solution no matter what goes wrong. Just breathe, figure it out, and problem solve. And that's been what I thought was the worst thing to ever happen to me, ended up being the greatest gift because of what it's given me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it's like a resilience that you can't buy.
Definitely, yeah.
All right, I got filter and resilience. Adina, what do you got for us?
How do I follow that? I'm just like, you know, I go back to, it's just like whenever you go through a crisis with your body, I mean, it's such a struggle. I lost my right lung in 2007, and I was misdiagnosed by a doctor and ended up, I had TB, and he was treating me for asthma, which you don't do. So anyway, I ended up losing my right lung, and while I laid in the hospital, because you don't get to have company or guests or visitors when you're in the hospital with TB, because you're highly contagious. And so anyway, I had to go through a regimen of 18 months of antibiotics, and so that was a tough call when I was laying in the hospital bed. And one of the things I did, it was a lot of self-talk, and I imagined myself, what is my life going to be like a year from now? And I literally am one of those people, I hate pain medicine. I cannot stand it. I don't like the way I feel. I had taken the pain ball out that they had attached, and had my drainage coming out my back and everything. But I laid there and I thought to myself, I learned to meditate and really think positive about, you know, my situation, and try to figure out what it is that I could do and what my life was going to be like. And so I laid there just imagining my life and knowing that something better was going to happen. Otherwise, I would have, you know, not have made it through or whatever it was, and would have been continued to taking the wrong medicine whenever for my treatment. So anyway, I think for me is that time that I laid in the hospital bed and I just did a lot of self-talk and imagined my life a year from now. And I do that, you know, I do that still today. I'll have self-conversations and what is it going to be like a year from now? So far, it's been very different every year. The first year after my diagnosis, it was wonderful. I was able to get up. I was actually in a wheelchair for 5 years during that time, just because when you have TB, your immune system is gone. And you lose the ability, your feet, you don't feel them anymore. Your hands in between your fingers, I couldn't feel anything. And nobody knew. They didn't test me for the right test. And so when your immune system is breaking down, you lose your vitamins in your body, and they can no longer absorb and take care of your nerve endings and everything. So anyway, for the most part, I learned to meditate. I still meditate to this day. I do a lot of self-positive talk, and I think that's really, really important, is to give yourself a break and then tell yourself you can get through this, because you've gotten through some of the worst days of your life, and the next few days are going to be hard, but you know what? It's going to be okay. And that's really pretty much where I come from. I just, you know, I measure everything from the worst day of my life, and okay, it can't get any worse than that, so everything else is a piece of pie, and just keep moving forward.
I love that, and I can vouch for Adina. It doesn't matter what's going on. She is calm, cool, collected. She's got her head on her shoulders, despite some chaos around her and some challenges. So I think, I mean, that was honestly like the most amazing question. I wish I asked it of the last one, because I'm just like, you guys really, you really went deep with it, and I just really grateful for your heartfelt stories. And I just think about the filter, right? Finding who really loves you, and the internal strength and resilience that Jeff had, and Adina, the power of the positive, right? A positive thinking, and some mindfulness techniques. I mean, those are things that we can all do better at. So just beautiful. Thank you all. I think I'm going to wrap it because it's right at 7 o'clock. I could ask you all questions all night, but this was supposed to end at 7. So just thank you all for your being here and participating, and just really real grateful for my panelists and Lucy for being our moderator. Lucy, do you have any final words of wisdom or logistics for us?
So this concludes Career Resource Night. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you again for joining us.